When a billionaire stopped to help a stranded mother on a stormy highway, he never expected to recognize the woman he'd loved and lost 12 years ago. What started as a simple act of kindness became the second chance neither of them thought they deserved. But can two broken single parents overcome the ghosts of their past and build the family they were always meant to be? Stay until the end to see how their story unfolds, and don't forget to hit that like button and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The windshield wipers were losing their battle against the rain. Ava Bennett gripped the steering wheel harder, her knuckles white in the dim glow of the dashboard lights. The engine made that sound again, a grinding, metallic whine that seemed to come from somewhere deep in the car's dying guts. She'd been ignoring it for 3 days now, pretending it would just go away if she didn't acknowledge it. That's how she dealt with most problems in her life lately. "Mom?" The small voice from the back seat cut through the drumming of rain on the roof. "Are we almost home?" Ava glanced in the rearview mirror at her 6-year-old son, Noah. His face was pressed against the window, breath fogging the glass as he watched the storm. Even in the darkness, she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. It was past 9 on a Thursday night, and they were still 20 minutes from their apartment, if the car made it that far. "Almost, baby. Try to sleep." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue, but what else could she say? That she had no idea if they'd make it home? That the check engine light had been glowing like an angry eye for the past week, and she'd been too broke to do anything about it? That she'd worked a double shift at the diner today, and her feet hurt so bad she wanted to cry, but she couldn't afford to cry because crying solved exactly nothing? No. You didn't tell your 6-year-old those things. The Pacific Coast Highway stretched ahead of them, a dark ribbon of asphalt hugging the cliffs above the ocean. On a clear day, this drive was beautiful, all dramatic coastline and endless blue water. But tonight, with the storm hammering down and the wind howling off the Pacific, it felt like driving through the end of the world. The engine coughed. "Come on," Ava whispered. "Please, just get us home." The car had other plans. With one final, pathetic sputter, the engine died completely. The dashboard lights flickered and went dark. Even the headlights dimmed to a weak yellow glow before giving up entirely. "Mom?" "It's okay, honey. Everything's fine." Another lie. She was getting good at those. Ava managed to coast the car onto the narrow shoulder, her heart hammering in her chest. The rain was coming down in sheets now, turning the world outside into a blur of dark water and darker sky. She pulled out her phone. No signal. Of course there wasn't. She let her head fall back against the headrest and closed her eyes. This was fine. This was totally fine. They'd just sit here in the car until the storm passed, and then she'd... What? Walk home? It was 10 miles. Carry Noah the whole way? I'm scared. Noah's voice was smaller now. Ava twisted in her seat to look at him. His dinosaur backpack was clutched to his chest, his dark hair falling into eyes that were trying so hard to be brave. He looked like his father, a thought that sent the usual spike of complicated emotions through her chest. Anger, regret, relief that the man was gone. "Don't be scared. We're safe in here." "But what if... No what ifs. We're going to be just fine." She turned back around and stared out at the rain. Through the rear window, she could see nothing but darkness and water. No cars had passed in the last 15 minutes. The nearest house was probably miles away. Her phone was useless. The car was dead. They were stuck. Ava had been stuck before. Stuck in a bad relationship that had taken her 3 years to escape. Stuck in a crappy apartment with water damage and a landlord who didn't care. Stuck in a minimum wage job that barely covered rent and groceries. But this felt different. This felt dangerous in a way that made her stomach clench with real fear. "Mom, there's a car." She jerked around. Through the rain-streaked back window, she could see headlights approaching. Her first instinct was relief, quickly followed by suspicion. It was after 9 o'clock on a Thursday night in the middle of a storm. Who else would be out here? The vehicle slowed as it approached. Not a car, but an SUV. Expensive looking, even in the dark. Black and sleek and completely out of place on this stretch of highway. It pulled to a stop behind them. "Stay in the car," Ava told Noah. She reached under the seat, fingers closing around the tire iron she kept there, just in case. Through the rear window, she watched a man get out of the SUV, tall, dark coat. He was just a silhouette in his own headlights, backlit and impossible to read. He walked toward her car with his hands visible, moving slowly through the rain. Ava cracked her window an inch. You okay? The voice was deep, concerned. Not threatening, but then again, threatening people rarely sounded threatening at first. We're fine, she called back. Just waiting out the storm. Your car died. It wasn't a question. She wondered how he knew, then realized her headlights were off. Pretty obvious. It'll start again in a minute. Another lie, but this one was for a stranger, and strangers didn't need the truth. The man moved closer, and the angle of his headlights finally illuminated his face. Ava's heart stopped. No, it wasn't possible. Ava? The tire iron slipped from her fingers and clattered to the floor. She sat frozen, staring at a face she hadn't seen in 12 years, a face she'd spent 12 years trying to forget. Ethan? The name came out barely above a whisper, but he heard it. She watched his expression shift from concern to shock to something she couldn't quite identify. Recognition, disbelief. The rain hammered down between them. What? She couldn't finish the sentence. What are you doing here? Why now? How is this possible? Ethan Calloway stood in the downpour, his expensive coat already soaked through, staring at her like she was a ghost, which was fair because she felt like one. I can't believe it's you, he said. 12 years since she'd last seen him, since she'd walked away from him at that pier with her heart breaking into pieces small enough to lose, since she'd convinced herself she was doing the right thing, even though it felt like dying. Mom? Noah's voice pulled her back. Who's that? Ava looked at her son, then back at Ethan. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not like this. Someone I used to know, she said quietly. Ethan's eyes moved to the back seat, to Noah, and something flickered across his face. Surprise? Calculation? She couldn't tell. Your car's not going to start again, Ethan said, his voice shifting into something more practical. Not in this weather. Let me give you a ride. No. The word came out harder than she intended. Ethan flinched slightly, and she hated herself for it. But accepting help from him, from Ethan Calloway, of all people, felt like opening a door she'd nailed shut years ago. Ava, be reasonable. You're stuck on the highway in a storm with a kid. I'm offering you a ride home. We're fine. You're not fine. You're sitting in a dead car with no heat and no lights, and the temperature's dropping. He paused. Please, just let me help you. Pride was a funny thing. It kept you warm when you had nothing else, but it also kept you freezing in a broken car in the middle of a storm when a perfectly good alternative was standing in the rain, offering assistance. Ava looked at Noah again. His lips were starting to look a little blue. Where are you even going? She asked Ethan. Why are you out here? I was visiting a site up the coast, heading back to the city. He ran a hand through his wet hair. Does it matter? It didn't. Not really. Fine, she said. But just a ride. That's it. Just a ride, he agreed. She turned to Noah. Grab your backpack, baby. We're getting in that car. Whose car? A friend's. Another lie. Ethan Calloway hadn't been her friend in over a decade. He'd been her first love, her biggest mistake, her deepest regret. But he wasn't her friend. Ava grabbed her purse and Noah's overnight bag, then stepped out into the rain. It was worse than she'd thought, cold and heavy and relentless. Within seconds, she was soaked. Ethan had already moved to open the back door of his SUV. The interior light spilled out, warm and dry and expensive looking. Leather seats, dark wood trim. It smelled like money. Come on, buddy, Ethan said to Noah, his voice gentle. Let's get you out of the rain. Noah looked at his mother. She nodded. He scrambled out of their car and into Ethan's, clutching his dinosaur backpack like a life preserver. Ava followed, sliding into the passenger seat. The warmth hit her immediately, heat pouring from the vents, the soft classical music playing low on the stereo. It was almost obscene how comfortable it was compared to the dying cold of her own car. Ethan got in and pulled the door shut. The rain became muffled, distant, just the three of them in this warm, dry bubble. Where am I taking you? He asked. Ava gave him her address. She watched his eyebrows raise slightly. That's the cheap part of town. I know. He didn't argue, just put the SUV in drive and pulled back onto the highway. For a few minutes, no one spoke. Noah was busy exploring the back seat, pressing buttons to see what they did. Ava stared straight ahead, hyper-aware of Ethan beside her. He drove the way she remembered, confident, careful. His hands were steady on the wheel. "How long has it been?" he asked quietly. 12 years, 3 months. She didn't add in 17 days, even though she knew the exact number. Some things you didn't forget, no matter how hard you tried. "You have a son." "I do." "He looks like his father." "I know." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I wasn't going to say that." "But you were thinking it." He didn't deny it. They drove in silence for another mile. The rain was starting to ease up slightly, though the wind still howled around them. Ava could feel the weight of 12 years pressing down on her chest. All the things left unsaid. All the doors she'd closed. "What happened to you?" Ethan asked finally. "Life happened." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting." He glanced at her, and for just a second she saw hurt flash across his face. "Good. Let him hurt. She'd hurt for years." "Mom?" Noah piped up from the back seat. "I'm hungry." Of course he was. She'd meant to pick up dinner after her shift, but then the car had started making that noise and she just wanted to get home. And now here they were. "We'll eat when we get home, baby." "There's a drive-thru up ahead," Ethan said. "We could stop." "No, we're fine." "Ava, tss." "I said no." The words came out sharper than she intended. Noah went quiet in the back seat. Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel. "Sorry," she muttered. "It's been a long day." "I get it." But he didn't get it. How could he? Ethan Calloway, who probably had a chef and a personal assistant and more money than he could spend in 3 lifetimes. What did he know about working double shifts and skipping meals so your kid could eat and praying your car would last just 1 more month? They reached the turnoff for her neighborhood. The houses got smaller, closer together. The streetlights flickered. Ethan navigated through the streets without comment, following her directions until they pulled up in front of her apartment building. It looked worse in his headlights. Peeling paint, cracked concrete, a broken window on the second floor that the landlord still hadn't fixed. "This is it," Ava said, already reaching for the door handle. "Wait." Ethan's hand shot out, catching her wrist. The touch sent electricity up her arm. "Your car. What are you going to do about it?" "I'll figure it out." "Ava, thank you for the ride, really, but I need to get Noah inside and fed and ready for bed." She pulled her wrist free. "Take care of yourself, Ethan." She opened the door and stepped out into the drizzle. Noah scrambled out after her, and together they ran for the building entrance. Ava didn't look back. She couldn't, but she could feel Ethan watching them all the way to the door. Took. The apartment was cold. The heater had been acting up for weeks, and Ava had been putting off calling the landlord because she knew he'd just tell her the same thing he always did. "It's an old building. What do you expect?" She got Noah out of his wet clothes and into his pajamas, then made him a quick dinner of leftover spaghetti and the last apple in the fridge. While he ate, she stood in the tiny kitchen and tried not to think about what had just happened. Ethan Calloway. After 12 years of radio silence, she'd run into him on the side of the highway in the middle of a storm. What were the odds? She pressed her forehead against the cabinet and closed her eyes. This was a bad dream. It had to be. She'd wake up tomorrow and it would all have been some stress-induced hallucination. "Mom, I'm done." Ava looked up to find Noah standing in the doorway, his dinosaur pajamas rumpled and his hair sticking up in every direction. He looked so small, so tired. "Teeth brushed?" He nodded. "Then bed, kiddo." She tucked him in, pulling the thin blanket up to his chin and pressing a kiss to his forehead. He smelled like kid shampoo and spaghetti sauce. "Mom?" he mumbled, already half asleep. "That man in the car, did you really know him?" "A long time ago, yeah." "He seemed nice." Ava didn't answer. Noah's breathing evened out, and within a minute he was asleep. She stood in the doorway of his room, watching him. This was her life now. This apartment with its broken heater and peeling wallpaper. This exhaustion that lived in her bones. This constant low-level fear that she wasn't doing enough, wasn't good enough, was failing him in ways she couldn't even see. But it was hers. She'd built it. And she didn't need Ethan Calloway or anyone else coming in and making her question whether it was enough. Her phone buzzed. A text from the diner. "Can you cover a shift tomorrow? Sarah called in sick." Ava stared at the message. Tomorrow was supposed to be her day off. The only day this week she'd planned to sleep past 6 a.m. But they needed the money. They always needed the money. She texted back, yes. Then she turned off her phone, grabbed the bottle of cheap wine from the fridge, and poured herself a glass. She didn't usually drink. Alcohol cost money, but tonight felt like it required an exception. She sat on the couch in the dark and tried not to remember the way Ethan had looked at her in the rain, like seeing her had broken something open inside him, the same way it had broken something open inside her. Ava woke up on the couch at 5:47 a.m. to someone pounding on the front door. She sat up, disoriented and stiff from sleeping in a weird position. The wine glass had tipped over at some point, leaving a red stain on the carpet that she'd have to deal with later. The pounding continued. "I'm coming," she called, her voice rough with sleep. She stumbled to the door and peered through the peephole. A man in coveralls stood in the hallway, holding a clipboard. Ava opened the door a crack. "Can I help you?" "Are you Ava Bennett?" "Yeah." "I'm here about your car. The 2008 Honda Civic registered to this address?" Her brain wasn't working fast enough. "My car's on the highway. It broke down last night." "I know. Already towed it to the shop. I'm here to give you the assessment." He consulted his clipboard. "Engine's shot. Transmission's not far behind. Realistically, you're looking at about $3,500 in repairs. Maybe more." The number hit her like a punch to the gut. $3,500. She didn't have $3,500. She didn't have $350. "Who?" She stopped, already knowing the answer. "Who called you?" "Got the work order from a Mr. Calloway, Ethan Calloway. Said to give you a full assessment and bill him directly for any repairs." "Of course he did. Tell Mr. Calloway thanks, but no thanks. I'll handle it myself." The mechanic looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, with all due respect, that car shouldn't be on the road. It's not safe. And Mr. Calloway already authorized—" "I don't care what he authorized. It's my car." "Look, I'm just doing my job, but he also said to give you this." The mechanic held out an envelope. Ava took it, suspicious. Inside was a handwritten note on expensive stationery. "Ava, I know you won't accept help, but your car is dangerous and you have a child. Please let me do this. No strings, just help. E." Beneath the note were 5 $100 bills. Ava's hands started shaking. Anger and humiliation and something else she couldn't name all crashed together in her chest. "Tell him no," she said, shoving the envelope back at the mechanic. "Tell him I don't need his charity." The mechanic didn't take it. "I can't do that, ma'am. I've got my orders. The car gets fixed, it gets billed to Mr. Calloway, and that's all I know." He tipped his cap. "Should have it ready in 3 days. We'll deliver it here when it's done." He walked away before she could argue further. Ava stood in the doorway, holding the envelope with its $500 and its note written in handwriting she'd recognize anywhere. 12 years. And Ethan still dotted his I's the same way. She wanted to scream. She wanted to throw the money in the trash. She wanted to call him and tell him to stay out of her life. But more than any of that, she wanted to cry, because accepting his help meant admitting she couldn't do this alone. And she'd spent 6 years building her life on the foundation of not needing anyone. "Mom?" Noah appeared in the hallway, rubbing his eyes. "Who was at the door?" Ava crumpled the note in her fist. "Nobody important, baby. Go get ready for school." Ashpasolum. She didn't call Ethan. For 3 days, she went to work, came home, took care of Noah, and ignored the envelope of money sitting on her kitchen counter like an accusation. On the 4th day, her car showed up in the parking lot with a note on the windshield. "All fixed, no charge, E." She sat in the driver's seat and cried for the first time in months. That night, after Noah was asleep, she pulled out her old sketchbook from the back of the closet. She hadn't drawn anything in years, not since she'd given up on art school to take care of her sick mother, not since everything had fallen apart. But suddenly she needed to create something, needed to do something with the tangle of emotions that had been building in her chest since that night on the highway. She stayed up until 3 in the morning, sketching and resketching the same image. The old pier where she and Ethan used to meet when they were young and stupid and in love. The way the sunset hit the water, the feeling of standing at the edge of something vast and terrifying and beautiful. By the time she finally stopped, her hand was cramping and there were tear stains on the paper. But it was good. It was really good. And for the first time in 6 years, Ava Bennett felt like maybe there was still something inside her worth saving. Ikets. The problem with running into your ex-boyfriend after 12 years was that you couldn't stop thinking about all the ways your life might have been different if you'd made different choices. Ava tried. She went to work, she took care of Noah, she pretended everything was normal. But at night, alone in her apartment, the memories came flooding back. Meeting Ethan at 18, both of them working summer jobs at the beach. The way he'd looked at her like she was the most interesting person he'd ever met. Long conversations that lasted until sunrise. Kisses that tasted like salt water and possibility. His family hating her because she wasn't from the right background. Her mother getting sick and needing constant care. The slow realization that their worlds were too different, that it would never work. The night at the pier when she'd told him it was over. The way his face had crumpled. The way she'd walked away even though every cell in her body was screaming at her to turn around. She thought she was doing the right thing, letting him go so he could have the life he was supposed to have. Marry someone appropriate. Build his empire. Not be dragged down by a girl with a sick mother and no money and no future. And he had built his empire, apparently. She'd looked him up online after the car incident. Ethan Callaway, CEO of Callaway Tech. Billionaire. Widower. Single father. That last part had surprised her. She'd known he'd gotten married, had tortured herself by looking at the wedding photos years ago. But his wife had died 3 years ago. Cancer. He was raising their daughter alone. So he understood. The exhaustion, the fear, the weight of being solely responsible for another human's entire existence. Maybe that's why he'd helped her. Not pity. Recognition. A week after the car incident, Ava made a decision. She finished the painting of the pier, spent money she didn't have to get it properly framed, and looked up the address of Callaway Tech headquarters. She was going to return his kindness. Not with money. She didn't have money. But with the one thing she still knew how to give. Art. Callaway Tech was everything she'd expected. Glass and steel and money. People in expensive suits walking around with expensive coffee. The kind of place where her secondhand dress and worn shoes stood out like a stain. She clutched the wrapped painting and approached the reception desk. "I have a delivery for Ethan Callaway." The receptionist looked her up and down with barely concealed disdain. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but Mr. Callaway doesn't accept unscheduled visitors. You can leave the package here and we'll make sure he gets it." "I need to give it to him personally." "That's not possible." Ava felt her temper rising. She'd taken a bus across the city, waited in line at the frame shop, spent $90 she desperately needed for other things. She wasn't leaving without seeing him. "Could you at least call his office? Tell him Ava Bennett is here?" The receptionist sighed dramatically, but picked up the phone. She spoke quietly for a moment. Then her expression shifted to surprise. "He'll be right down," she said, sounding shocked. Ava waited, her heart pounding. This was stupid. She should have just left it with the receptionist. Why had she thought this was a good idea? The elevator dinged. Ethan stepped out, and for a second they just stared at each other. He looked different in a suit, older, more polished, but his eyes were the same, that same intense dark brown that had always made her feel like he could see straight through her. "Ava," he crossed the lobby to her. "What are you doing here?" "I came to thank you for the car." She held out the painting. "And to give you this." He took it carefully, unwrapping the brown paper. When he saw what was underneath, he went very still. "You painted this?" "Yeah." "It's the pier." "Yeah." He looked at her and there was something raw in his expression. "Ava, it's a thank you, that's all." She took a step back. "For helping me, when you didn't have to." "Of course I had to. You were stuck on the highway with your son. Most people would have just called a tow truck. I'm not most people." "No." He really wasn't. They stood there in the middle of the busy lobby, and Ava was suddenly aware of people staring. Of course they were staring. Ethan Callaway, billionaire CEO, talking to some woman in a cheap dress holding a painting. "I should go," she said. "I just wanted to have dinner with me." The words came out fast, like he'd been holding them back. "What?" "Dinner, tonight, or tomorrow, whenever you're free." "Ethan, please, Just dinner. We haven't talked in 12 years. I think we deserve at least one meal to catch up. Every instinct she had was screaming at her to say no, to walk away now before this got complicated, before old feelings resurfaced and made her forget all the reasons they'd broken up in the first place. But looking at him now, holding the painting she'd made of their place, their pier, she couldn't make herself say it. One dinner, she heard herself say. That's it. Ethan's smile was like the sun coming out. One dinner, I promise. She gave him her number, the same number she'd had for 5 years, which meant he could have called any time if he'd wanted to, which he hadn't, which should have told her everything she needed to know. But she gave it to him anyway, because maybe, just maybe, some doors weren't meant to stay closed forever. Miss Sate. Ethan called that evening while she was helping Noah with his homework. Tomorrow night? He asked. There's a place downtown, quiet, good food. I can't tomorrow. I have to work. When can you? Ava looked at her calendar, which was mostly empty except for work shifts. Saturday, but I'll need to find a babysitter. Bring Noah. She paused. You want to have dinner with me and my 6-year-old? Why not? I have a 6-year-old too. They can entertain each other while we talk. It was such a bizarre suggestion that she almost laughed. A reunion dinner with 2 6-year-olds in tow. Very romantic. Okay, she said. Saturday, but somewhere kid-friendly. I know a place. I'll pick you up at 6. After she hung up, Noah looked at her with curious eyes. Who was that? The man who helped us when the car broke down. We're having dinner with him on Saturday. Why? Good question. Why was she doing this? Because sometimes it's nice to have dinner with old friends, she said, even though friend wasn't the right word and hadn't been the right word in over a decade. Saturday came faster than she expected. Ava found herself standing in front of her closet, staring at clothes that were either too worn for a dinner out or too nice for where her life was now. She settled on a simple black dress and the one pair of heels she owned that didn't hurt her feet. When Ethan knocked at exactly 6, Noah answered the door before she could stop him. Hi, Noah said, peering up at the tall man in the expensive coat. You're the car man. Ethan smiled. I am. And you're Noah, right? How'd you know? Your mom told me. Ava appeared behind Noah, feeling absurdly nervous. Sorry, he's going through a phase where he thinks he's the doorman. It's fine. Ethan looked at her, and something flickered in his eyes. You look beautiful. The compliment caught her off guard. Thanks. You look successful. He laughed, and the sound eased some of the tension in her chest. Come on, let's go before we both get too awkward to function. The restaurant was nice, but not pretentious. The kind of place with good food and reasonable noise levels where a kid wouldn't feel out of place. Ethan's daughter was already there, waiting with a woman Ethan introduced as Mrs. Chen, our housekeeper. The little girl, Sophia, had dark curly hair and her father's eyes. She and Noah sized each other up for about 3 seconds before deciding they were friends and immediately launching into a conversation about dinosaurs. Well, Ethan said, sitting down across from Ava, that was easier than I thought. Noah's friendly, sometimes too friendly. Sophia, too. She talks to everyone. They ordered food, burgers for the kids, something fancier for the adults that Ava couldn't quite pronounce. While they waited, an uncomfortable silence settled between them. Finally, Ethan spoke. I looked you up after the highway. I hope that's not creepy. I looked you up too. So you know about your wife? Yeah, I'm sorry. He nodded slowly. It was 3 years ago. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like forever. I get that. Do you? He wasn't being confrontational, just curious. Noah's father, are you still together? Ava laughed bitterly. No, God no. We were together for about 2 years total. He left when I was 4 months pregnant. Haven't seen him since. I'm sorry. Don't be. He would have been a terrible father. She took a sip of water. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. Ethan smiled at that, but it was sad around the edges. You always had a way with words. Yeah, well, life's not a fairy tale. Might as well be honest about it. The food arrived, and for a while they focused on eating and making sure the kids didn't make too much of a mess. But eventually, the conversation found its way back to them. Can I ask you something? Ethan said quietly. Why'd you really break up with me? Back then? Ava set down her fork. She'd known this question was coming, had been dreading it. You know why. Your family hated me. My mom was sick. We were from different worlds. That's the excuse you gave me. I'm asking for the real reason. She met his eyes. That was the real reason, Ethan. You were going to business school. Your father had your whole life mapped out. I was a girl from nowhere with a dying mother and no prospects. I wasn't going to be the thing that derailed your future. So you decided for both of us. Yes. Without asking what I wanted. I knew what you wanted. You wanted me, but I also knew what you needed, and they weren't the same thing. Ethan leaned back in his chair, and she could see him processing this. 12 years too late, but processing it nonetheless. For the record, he said finally, I think you were wrong. I think we could have figured it out. Maybe. Or maybe we would have crashed and burned and hated each other by now. She shrugged. We'll never know. No, he agreed quietly. We won't. Across the table, Noah and Sophia were building something out of sugar packets and straw wrappers. They were laughing, completely oblivious to the weight of the conversation happening 3 feet away. I never stopped thinking about you, Ethan said suddenly. Even after I got married. Even during the good years. There was always this part of me that wondered, what if? Ava's throat tightened. Don't. Don't what? Don't say things like that. It doesn't help anything. Maybe I don't want to help. Maybe I just want to be honest. She looked at him, really looked at him, at the lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 12 years ago, at the way he held himself like someone who'd learned to carry weight, at the wedding ring he wasn't wearing anymore but probably still felt. I thought about you too, she admitted, more than I should have, more than was healthy. And nothing. We're different people now. We have kids. We have lives that don't intersect. They intersected last week on a highway in a storm. That was an accident. Was it? He leaned forward. I drive that highway once a month for work. I've never seen you before. What are the odds that I'd be there the exact night your car broke down? Random chance. The universe doesn't care about our love story, Ethan. It's not that poetic. Maybe it is. Maybe we're getting a second chance. The hope in his voice broke something in her chest. I can't do this. I can't let myself believe in second chances and fairy tale endings. I have to focus on Noah and work and keeping my life together. I don't have room for anything else. What if I want to make room? Then you're going to be disappointed. She stood up, suddenly desperate to leave. This had been a mistake. She'd known it would be a mistake, but she'd come anyway, and now here they were, picking at old wounds that had never really healed. Ava, wait. Noah, we're leaving. But Mom, now. The sharpness in her voice made Noah scramble out of his chair. Sophia looked confused. Ethan looked hurt. Ava didn't care. She couldn't care. Caring was dangerous. She grabbed Noah's hand and headed for the door. Behind her, she heard Ethan call her name, but she didn't stop. She made it outside before the tears started falling. Noah didn't talk to her the whole bus ride home. He sat with his arms crossed, staring out the window with that particular brand of 6-year-old disappointment that somehow felt worse than outright anger. Ava wanted to explain, wanted to tell him why they'd left so abruptly, but how could she explain something she barely understood herself? By the time they got back to the apartment, her head was pounding and her feet hurt from walking 2 blocks in heels because the bus stop was never close enough. Go get ready for bed, she told Noah. It's only 7:30. Then read a book. I don't care. Just please, Noah, give me a minute. He stomped off to his room without another word. The door didn't quite slam, but it closed hard enough to make the point. Ava kicked off her heels and collapsed on the couch. Her phone buzzed. She didn't need to look to know it was Ethan. She'd felt it vibrating in her purse 3 times during the bus ride. She should answer. Apologize for running out. Something. Instead, she turned the phone off and sat in the dark apartment, listening to Noah move around in his room and wondering when exactly her life had become such a complete disaster. The knock came 20 minutes later. Ava's first thought was that the landlord had finally decided to do something about the broken heater. Her second thought, when she looked through the peephole, was that she really needed to stop being surprised when Ethan Calloway showed up at her door. She opened it halfway. How did you... You gave me your address when the car got towed, remember? He had his hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable and determined in equal measure. Can we talk? There's nothing to talk about. You ran out of a restaurant in the middle of dinner. I think there's plenty to talk about. Ethan, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Ava glanced back toward Noah's room. The light was still on under the door. Fine, but not here. Outside. She grabbed her jacket and followed Ethan down to the parking lot. The night air was cold and damp, carrying the smell of rain that hadn't quite arrived yet. They stood under the one functioning streetlight, and Ava wrapped her arms around herself. I'm sorry, Ethan said, for pushing, for saying too much. You didn't say anything that wasn't true. That doesn't mean you were ready to hear it. Ava laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think? Ethan, we haven't spoken in 12 years. You can't just show up and start talking about second chances like no time has passed. I know that. Do you? Because it feels like you think this is some romantic movie where we just pick up where we left off and everything's fine. That's not what I think. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I know it's complicated. I know we're not the same people. But I also know that when I saw you on that highway, for the first time in 3 years, I felt something other than numb. The confession hung between them. Your wife died, Ava said quietly. You're grieving. I'm familiar. That's all this is. Don't tell me what I'm feeling. Then don't tell me we're getting a second chance when you don't even know if that's what you want, or if you're just lonely. Ethan stepped closer. I've been lonely for 3 years. I didn't track down every woman I used to know. I didn't feel this way until I saw you. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, but it's real. Ava closed her eyes. She could feel herself cracking, all the defenses she'd carefully built starting to crumble. I can't do this, Ethan. I can't let myself care about you again just to watch it fall apart. What if it doesn't fall apart? It will. It always does. You don't know that. Yes, I do, because I'm not some success story. I'm a single mom working at a diner trying to keep my head above water. You're a billionaire CEO. We don't belong in the same universe. We're in the same universe right now. For how long? Until you realize I don't fit into your world? Until your family reminds you that I'm not good enough? I've done this dance before, Ethan. I know how it ends. My family doesn't run my life anymore. Maybe not. But that doesn't change the fact that we're from different places. She opened her eyes and looked at him. I can't be your project. Your charity case. The broken thing you fix to feel better about yourself. The words came out harsher than she meant them to, and she watched Ethan flinch. Is that really what you think this is? His voice was quiet, hurt. I don't know what to think. All I know is that every time I start to let my guard down, life reminds me why I put it up in the first place. They stood in silence for a long moment. Somewhere in the building, a baby was crying. A car alarm went off 3 blocks away. The normal sounds of her normal life. I should go back inside, Ava said finally. Noah's upset with me. Because of me. Because of me. I'm the one who ran out. Ethan nodded slowly. Can I ask you something before you go? Yeah. That painting, the pier, why that memory? Ava looked down at her feet. Because it was the last time I felt like anything was possible. Before everything got complicated and hard. Before I learned that wanting something doesn't mean you get to keep it. You could have painted anything, but you chose our place. I know. Doesn't that tell you something? It told her plenty, that she was a fool, that 12 years wasn't long enough to forget, that some doors, no matter how hard you tried to close them, never really latched. Good night, Ethan. She turned and walked back to the building before he could say anything else, before she could change her mind, before she could do something stupid like believe him. Inside the apartment, Noah's light was off. She cracked open his door and found him curled up under his blanket, pretending to be asleep. She knew he was pretending because his breathing wasn't quite right. I'm sorry, baby, she whispered. Sometimes grown-ups mess things up. Noah didn't answer, but she thought maybe his breathing hitched a little. Ava closed the door and went to her own room. She didn't cry. She'd learned a long time ago that crying didn't fix anything. But she did lie awake until 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling and trying not to think about the look on Ethan's face when she'd walked away. The next morning, she woke up to find an email notification on her phone. from an address she didn't recognize, with a subject line that just said, "Please read." She almost deleted it, but curiosity won. The email was from Ethan. It was long, too long for 6 in the morning, but she read it anyway. "Ava, I'm not good at backing off when I know I'm right about something. It's a character flaw. Ask anyone who works for me. But I'm going to try because you asked me to, and I respect that. I won't call. I won't show up at your apartment. I won't push. But I need you to know something. You're not a charity case. You're not a project. You're the woman I loved when I was too young to understand what love meant. And the woman I see now is even more remarkable than the girl I remember. You've survived things that would have broken most people. You've raised a good kid on your own. You've built a life out of nothing. That's not weakness. That's strength. I don't want to fix you. You're not broken. I just want to be around you. That's all. So I'm going to step back and give you space. But I'm leaving the door open on my end. If you ever want to walk through it, I'll be here. E. Whoa. Ava read it 3 times, then put her phone down and went to make coffee with shaking hands. Work was brutal that day. The breakfast rush started early and didn't stop until well past noon. Ava's feet hurt, her back hurt, and she'd spilled coffee on herself twice. A table of businessmen left her a $2 tip on a $60 check. "Rough day?" her coworker Maria asked during a brief lull. "You could say that. You look like you didn't sleep." "I didn't." Maria raised an eyebrow. "Good reason or bad reason?" "Complicated reason." "Ah, man trouble." Ava laughed despite herself. "Is it that obvious?" "Honey, you've got that look. The one that says you're trying real hard to convince yourself you don't care about something you definitely care about." Maria refilled the coffee pot. "Want to talk about it?" "Not really." "Fair enough. But for what it's worth, whatever it is, you'll figure it out. You always do." The words were kind, but they sat heavy in Ava's chest. She always figured it out because she had to, because there was no one else to figure it out for her, because survival didn't give you the luxury of falling apart. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe she'd gotten so good at surviving that she'd forgotten how to do anything else. Her phone buzzed during her break. Not Ethan. He'd said he wouldn't call, and apparently he meant it. Instead, it was a text from an unknown number. "Hi, this is Mrs. Chen. Sophia's been asking about Noah. Would he like to come over for a play date this weekend? No pressure. Just thought the kids might enjoy it." Ava stared at the message. It was such a normal thing. A play date. The kind of thing other parents probably arranged all the time without it being emotionally complicated. But this wasn't normal. This was Ethan's housekeeper, which meant Ethan had given her Ava's number, which meant this was Ethan's idea even if he was keeping his distance like he'd promised. She should say no. Keep the boundaries clear. Don't let the kids get attached when this whole thing was probably going to implode. But Noah had been so excited at dinner before she'd ruined everything. He'd actually made a friend, which didn't happen as often as she'd like. He spent most of his time with her, or alone, because she couldn't afford after-school activities or birthday parties. "Can I think about it?" Ava texted back. "Of course. No rush." When Ava picked Noah up from school that afternoon, he was still giving her the silent treatment. They walked to the bus stop in silence, rode home in silence, climbed the stairs to their apartment in silence. Finally, as she was pulling groceries out of the bag, she broke. "Someone invited you to a playdate this weekend." Noah looked up from his homework, suspicious. "Who?" "Sophia, the girl from dinner." His whole face changed. "Really?" "Yeah, her nanny texted me. They have a big yard, apparently, and a treehouse." "Can I go?" Ava hesitated. This was the moment, the decision point. Say yes and open the door a crack. Say no and keep it closed. "Would you want to?" she asked instead. "Yeah, she was cool. She knows all the dinosaur names, even the hard ones." "Okay, I'll tell them yes." Noah actually smiled. It was the first real smile she'd seen from him in 2 days, and it made the decision feel worth it, even if it scared her. That night, after Noah went to bed, Ava stood in front of her easel for the first time in years. She'd bought it at a yard sale when Noah was a baby, telling herself she'd start painting again when she had time. She'd never had time. But now she pulled it out of the closet, set it up in the corner of the living room, and stared at the blank canvas. She didn't have a plan, didn't have a vision. But her hands knew what to do anyway. By 2 in the morning, she'd sketched out the basic composition. By 4, she'd started adding color. By the time the sun came up, she had something that looked almost like art. It was Ethan, standing on the pier looking out at the ocean. But it wasn't just him, it was the feeling of him. The weight of memory and possibility and all the things left unsaid. Ava stepped back and looked at what she'd created. It was good. Maybe too good. Too revealing. She should paint over it, start something else, something safe. But she didn't. Saturday came too fast. Mrs. Chen picked Noah up at 10 in the morning, promising to have him back by 5. Ava spent the first hour of his absence cleaning the apartment because that's what she did when she needed to not think. But by noon, the apartment was as clean as it was going to get, and she was left alone with her thoughts and the painting in the corner. Her phone rang. Not Ethan. He was keeping his promise, but a number she didn't recognize. Hello? Is this Ava Bennett? Yes? This is Dr. Sarah Chen from Community Health Clinic. I have the results from Noah's blood work from his last checkup. Ava's stomach dropped. Is something wrong? No, nothing concerning. Actually, everything looks good. I just wanted to follow up because I noticed you haven't scheduled his 6-month dental appointment yet. Right. Yeah, I'll call them this week. Great. And Ms. Bennett, I also wanted to mention that we have a sliding scale payment program if cost is a concern. You don't have to pay everything up front. The kindness in the doctor's voice made Ava's throat tight. Thank you. I appreciate that. After she hung up, Ava sat on the couch and put her head in her hands. Even the doctor knew she was struggling. It was that obvious. Her phone buzzed with a text. This time it was from Noah, sent from Mrs. Chen's phone. Mom, look at this treehouse. It's huge. The message came with a photo of Noah and Sophia grinning in what was indeed a massive treehouse. Ava smiled despite everything. At least one of them was having a good day. She was still looking at the photo when her doorbell rang. Not again. She wasn't ready for another Ethan ambush. But when she opened the door, it wasn't Ethan. It was a delivery guy holding a huge box. Ava Bennett? That's me. Sign here. She signed, confused. She hadn't ordered anything. The guy left the box on her doorstep and disappeared down the stairs. Ava dragged the box inside and opened it carefully. Inside was art supplies. Good art supplies. Professional-grade paints, brushes, canvases, charcoal, pastels, everything she'd given up buying years ago because she couldn't justify the expense. There was a note tucked in the top. I saw what you could do with one painting. Imagine what you could do with the right tools. This isn't charity, it's investment, E. Ava sat on the floor surrounded by art supplies and tried to decide if she was angry or grateful or both. She settled on both. That evening, when Mrs. Chen brought Noah home, he was still buzzing with excitement. Mom, they have a pool and a movie room, and Sophia's dad said maybe next time I can stay for dinner if that's okay with you and we can watch a movie and breathe, Noah. He took a breath, grinning. Can I go back next week? Mrs. Chen smiled apologetically. He had a good time. I can see that. Ava looked at the housekeeper. Thank you for watching him. It was no trouble. Sophia needed a friend. They're good for each other. After they left, Noah couldn't stop talking about the treehouse, the pool, the toys, the snacks. Ava listened and tried not to feel inadequate about her own apartment with its broken heater and single toy box. Mom? Noah said as she was tucking him in. Yeah, baby? Why don't we have a treehouse? Because we live in an apartment building. Oh, right. He was quiet for a moment. Sophia's dad seems nice. He is nice. Are you friends with him? It's complicated. That's what grown-ups always say when they don't want to explain things. He wasn't wrong. We used to be close, Ava said carefully. A long time ago, before you were born. Like boyfriend and girlfriend. Something like that. And now? Now I don't know what we are. Noah considered this. Sophia says her dad is sad a lot because her mom died. Ava's heart clenched. That's really hard. Yeah, but she said he smiled more today than he has in a long time because I was there playing with her. That's good, Noah. That's really good. Maybe we should have dinner with them again, since you didn't let us finish last time. The accusation was gentle but pointed. Ava sighed. Maybe we should. She texted Mrs. Chen after Noah fell asleep. Thank you again for today. He had a great time. The response came quickly. Anytime. And between you and me, Mr. Calloway kept checking his phone all day, hoping you might text. Just thought you should know. Ava stared at the message for a long time. Then she opened a new text thread. Ethan's number was still in her phone from when he'd called about dinner. She typed and deleted 3 different messages before settling on something simple. Thank you for the art supplies. You didn't have to do that. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. I wanted to. Did you like them? They're perfect, too perfect. No such thing as too perfect when it comes to helping someone rediscover their talent. You don't know if I have talent. You've seen one painting. One painting was enough. Ava found herself smiling at her phone like a teenager. This was dangerous territory. Noah had fun today. Sophia, too. She's already planning their next adventure. About that, Noah asked if we could have dinner again, all 4 of us, to make up for me running out last time. The 3 dots appeared and stayed. I'd like that. When? I work most nights this week. Saturday? Saturday's perfect. My place this time. Mrs. Chen makes incredible food. Ethan. Just dinner, Ava, I promise. No pressure. No big conversations. Just food and kids and maybe finding out if we can actually be in the same room for more than an hour without you fleeing. She should say no. This was a bad idea. But Noah wanted this, and maybe she wanted it too, even if admitting that scared her. Okay, Saturday, but I'm bringing dessert. Deal. Monday morning, Ava woke up to her phone ringing at 6 a.m. The diner. Ava, I know this is last minute, but can you come in early? Marcus called in sick and we're slammed. She looked at the clock. She was supposed to drop Noah at school at 8, which meant she'd need to find someone to take him. How early? Now? Ava closed her eyes. Give me 30 minutes. She called the only person she could think of, her neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, who sometimes watched Noah in emergencies. The woman agreed, thank God, and Ava dropped Noah off with promises of making it up to him later. Work was chaos. The morning rush was worse than usual. The kitchen was backed up, and one of the coffee machines broke down. By noon, Ava's feet were screaming, and she'd been stiffed on tips twice. During her break, she checked her phone and found a text from an unknown number. Hi, Ava, this is Jennifer from Riverside Art Gallery. We received a submission of your work from a colleague and would love to schedule a meeting to discuss a possible exhibition. Please call at your earliest convenience. Ava read it 3 times, sure she was hallucinating from exhaustion. A gallery, wanting to exhibit her work. She only knew one person who would have submitted her work anywhere. She called Ethan immediately. He answered on the second ring. Did you send my painting to a gallery? Good morning to you too. Ethan. Yes, I sent them photos of the pier painting. Was that wrong? You can't just... I didn't... She stopped, frustrated. You should have asked me first. If I'd asked, you would have said no. Exactly. Ava, you have real talent. The kind of talent that deserves to be seen. I just opened a door. You don't have to walk through it. But you put me in a position where if I don't walk through it, I look like an idiot. No, you'll look like someone who made a choice. Either choice is fine. Ava leaned against the wall of the diner, watching cars pass on the street outside. A gallery exhibition. It was the kind of thing she dreamed about when she was 18 and still believed dreams came true. What did you tell them? She asked quietly. That you were a talented artist who'd been focusing on other priorities but was ready to share your work. That you had a unique perspective and a distinctive voice. You told them all that from one painting? I told them the truth. She should be angry. She wanted to be angry, but mostly she just felt terrified. I don't have enough work for an exhibition. Then make more. I don't have time to make more. Find time. Ethan, what are you so afraid of? The question hit harder than it should have. I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of trying and not being good enough. I'm afraid of letting myself want something and then losing it. What if you don't fail? Everyone fails eventually. Not everyone. And even if you do, at least you tried. That's more than most people can say. Ava closed her eyes. I need to get back to work. Think about it. That's all I'm asking. Just think about it. After she hung up, Ava stood in the back alley of the diner and let herself imagine it. Her work on gallery walls, people looking at what she'd created, critics reviewing her art, maybe even selling a piece. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. She pulled out her phone and called the gallery back. "This is Ava Bennett. I got your message about the exhibition." "Yes, thank you for calling back. We're very excited about your work."
I need to be honest with you. I only have a few finished pieces right now. How many is a few? 2, maybe 3 if I finish the one I'm working on. There was a pause. We typically need at least 12 pieces for a show. Right. Of course, I'm sorry for wasting your time, but, the woman interrupted, we have an opening in 6 months. If you think you could have 12 pieces ready by then, we'd love to work with you.
6 months, 12 paintings, while working full-time and raising a 6-year-old. It was impossible. "I'll do it," Ava heard herself say. "Wonderful. Let's schedule a time for you to come in and discuss details." After she hung up, Ava stood in the alley and wondered what she'd just agreed to. Then she went back inside and finished her shift with a strange lightness in her chest that felt almost like hope. That night, after Noah went to bed, Ava set up her easel and got to work. She had 6 months to create 10 more paintings good enough for a gallery exhibition. She'd done harder things. Probably. The week passed in a blur of work and painting and trying to be present for Noah while her mind was constantly elsewhere. By Friday night, she'd finished 2 more pieces and started sketches for 3 others. She was exhausted and exhilarated and terrified. Saturday arrived with Noah bouncing off the walls with excitement about dinner at Sophia's house. "What should I wear?" he asked, rifling through his drawer. "Whatever you want, baby." "Sophia's house is fancy. I should probably wear something nice." Ava looked at her 6-year-old trying to pick out a nice shirt and felt her heart squeeze. "How about the blue button-up Grandma sent for your birthday?" "Perfect." While Noah got dressed, Ava stood in front of her own closet with the same dilemma. Everything she owned screamed broke single mom, which was accurate but not exactly the image she wanted to project. She settled on dark jeans and a green sweater that at least fit well. It would have to do. Mrs. Chen picked them up at 5:30. The drive to Ethan's house took them to a part of the city Ava had only seen from the highway. Big houses, perfect lawns, gates, and security. When they pulled up to Ethan's place, Noah's jaw dropped. "This is where Sophia lives?" Apparently. The house was massive but not ostentatious. Modern architecture, lots of glass and wood, perched on a hillside with what had to be an incredible view. The kind of place that probably cost more than Ava would make in 10 lifetimes. Ethan met them at the door with Sophia bouncing beside him. "You came!" Sophia grabbed Noah's hand and immediately started dragging him toward the mysterious treehouse. "Shoes off first," Ethan called after them. Both kids kicked off their shoes in a heap by the door and disappeared. Ava stood in the entryway holding a store-bought pie and feeling completely out of place. "Hi," Ethan said. "Hi. You brought dessert." "You said I could." "I did." He took the pie from her. "Come in. Let me give you a tour before dinner." The house was beautiful in an understated way. Lots of light, comfortable furniture, art on the walls. It felt lived in despite its size. There were Sophia's drawings on the fridge, toys in corners, proof that real people existed here. "You have a nice home," Ava said. "It's too big for just the 2 of us, but Sophia loves it, so." He shrugged. They ended up in the kitchen, where Mrs. Chen was putting finishing touches on what smelled incredible. "Can I help with anything?" Ava asked. "Absolutely not," Mrs. Chen said firmly. "You're a guest. Sit. Relax." Ethan poured them wine, and they sat at the kitchen island while Mrs. Chen worked. "How's the painting going?" he asked. "You really want to know?" "I wouldn't have asked if I didn't." "It's going. I finished 2 more this week. Started sketches for 3 others." "That's amazing. It's terrifying. I haven't painted seriously in years. What if I've lost it? What if the gallery realizes they made a mistake?" "They didn't make a mistake." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." He met her eyes. "I've seen your work, Ava. You haven't lost anything." The conviction in his voice made something warm unfurl in her chest. Outside, they could hear the kids laughing. Through the window, Ava could see them in the treehouse, probably planning some elaborate game. "Noah talks about Sophia constantly," she admitted. "Sophia does the same. I think they're attached at the hip now." "Is that going to be a problem when—" She stopped, not sure how to finish. "When what?" When this whole thing between us inevitably gets complicated? Ethan set down his wine glass. It doesn't have to get complicated. Everything gets complicated. Not if we don't let it. Before Ava could respond, both kids came barreling into the kitchen, faces flushed and eyes bright. "Dad, can Noah stay the night?" Sophia asked. "Please? We were going to build a fort and watch movies and—" "Sophia, we talked about asking before making plans. But Noah has to go home with his mom tonight," Ava said gently. "But maybe another time." Both kids looked disappointed but didn't argue. Mrs. Chen called them to the dining room, and they all sat down to a meal that was easily the best food Ava had eaten in months. The kids chattered nonstop about school and dinosaurs and some show they both watched. Ethan caught Ava's eye across the table and smiled, and for just a moment it felt easy, natural, like maybe this could work. After dinner, while the kids ran off to play more, Ava helped clear the table despite Mrs. Chen's protests. "You raised a good boy," Mrs. Chen said quietly, loading the dishwasher. "Thank you. I'm trying. Trying is all any of us can do." The older woman smiled. "And for what it's worth, I think you and Mr. Calloway are good for each other. We barely know each other anymore. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Fresh start." The words stayed with Ava through the rest of the evening, through dessert and coffee, and watching the kids play one more game before it was time to go. As Mrs. Chen drove them home, Noah fell asleep in the back seat, worn out from happiness. Ava's phone buzzed. "Thank you for coming tonight, for giving this a chance." She looked at the message for a long moment before responding. "Thank you for not giving up on me." "Never." The simple word felt like a promise. The weeks that followed developed a rhythm Ava hadn't expected. Saturday playdates became a regular thing, then occasional weeknight dinners when their schedules aligned. Ethan never pushed, never demanded more than she was willing to give. But he was there, steady, present in a way that felt both comforting and terrifying. Ava painted whenever she could steal the time. Late nights after Noah fell asleep, early mornings before her shift started. Her apartment became a maze of canvases in various states of completion, paint-stained rags and coffee cups she forgot to wash. "Mom, it smells weird in here," Noah complained one morning, wrinkling his nose at the turpentine. "That's the smell of art, baby. Art smells gross." "You're not wrong." She was up to 7 finished pieces now. 7 down, 5 to go. The gallery had sent over paperwork, made it official. She had an exhibition scheduled for March, which meant she had 4 months left to finish. 4 months to prove she wasn't the failure she'd spent 6 years convinced she was. The diner manager, Tom, noticed the paint under her fingernails during a shift. "You taking up a new hobby?" he asked, refilling the coffee station. "Something like that." "Well, don't let it interfere with work. We need you sharp." Sharp. Right. As if she had energy left for sharp after working 8-hour shifts and parenting and painting until her hands cramped. But she smiled and said, "Of course not, because that's what you did when you needed the paycheck." It was a Wednesday night, 3 weeks after that second dinner at Ethan's house, when everything changed. Ava had just picked Noah up from aftercare, and they were walking to the bus stop when he stumbled. Not unusual. 6-year-olds stumbled all the time. But then he grabbed her hand with fingers that felt like they were burning. "Mom, I don't feel good." She pressed her palm to his forehead. Hot. Really hot. "Okay, baby, let's get you home." On the bus, Noah leaned against her, his small body radiating heat. By the time they reached their stop, he was barely walking on his own. Ava half carried him up the stairs to their apartment, her heart starting to hammer with real fear. She got him into bed and checked his temperature. 103.4. "Okay, that's high. That's too high." She gave him children's ibuprofen and a glass of water. "Drink this, Noah, all of it." "My throat hurts." "I know, baby. Just try." She called the pediatrician's after-hours line. The nurse asked a series of questions about symptoms, then said what Ava already knew. "If it goes above 104, take him to the ER. Otherwise, alternate ibuprofen and acetaminophen every 4 hours, push fluids, and call us in the morning if he's not improving." After she hung up, Ava sat on the edge of Noah's bed and watched him sleep fitfully. His cheeks were flushed, his breathing shallow. She told herself it was just a fever. Kids got fevers. It was normal. But the fear sitting in her chest didn't feel normal. By 8 o'clock, his temperature had climbed to 103.8 despite the medication. Ava changed his sheets because he'd sweated through them, got him into fresh pajamas, tried to get him to sip water through a straw. "I'm cold," he whimpered. "I know it feels that way, but you're actually really hot. We need to cool you down." "I want to go to Sophia's house." "Not tonight, baby." "But we were supposed to build the fort. We planned it." Ava's throat tightened. She'd forgotten about the play date they'd scheduled for tomorrow. "We'll reschedule. Sophia will understand." Noah started crying then, the feverish, inconsolable crying that broke her heart because she couldn't fix it. At 9:30, she checked his temperature again. 104.2. That was it. That was the number the nurse had said meant emergency room. Ava grabbed her phone with shaking hands. She needed to call an ambulance or find a way to get Noah to the hospital. The bus didn't run frequently this late, and a taxi would cost money she didn't have, but none of that mattered because her son was burning up, and she was alone and terrified. She was scrolling through her contacts trying to figure out who to call when her phone rang. Ethan. She almost didn't answer, but something made her hit the green button. "Hey, I know it's late, but Sophia wanted me to confirm tomorrow's play date, and Ava? What's wrong?" She hadn't said anything yet, but somehow he knew. "Noah's sick, really sick. His fever won't break and I need to get him to the hospital, but I can't." Her voice cracked. "Where are you?" "Home. But I'm coming. Don't move. Don't do anything. I'll be there in 15 minutes. "Ethan, you don't have to." 15 minutes. He hung up. Ava stood in the middle of her small apartment, phone still in her hand, and tried to breathe. This was fine. Ethan was coming. She wasn't alone, except she barely knew him anymore, hadn't known him for 12 years, and now she was letting him into her crisis like he had the right to be there. But she didn't have time to second guess because Noah called for her from the bedroom, his voice small and scared, and she went to him. Ethan made it in 12 minutes. When Ava opened the door, he was breathing hard like he'd run up the stairs, still in the dress shirt and slacks he must have been wearing for whatever evening event he'd attended. "Where is he?" "Bedroom." Ethan went straight to Noah without hesitation. He crouched beside the bed and placed his hand on Noah's forehead with the kind of gentle confidence that came from doing this before, from having his own sick kid. "Hey, buddy, not feeling so great, huh?" Noah opened his eyes. "Mr. Calloway?" "Yeah, it's me. Your mom called because you need to see a doctor. That okay with you?" Noah nodded weakly. "Good man." Ethan looked at Ava. "I'm taking you both to County General. I already called ahead. They're expecting us." "You called ahead?" "I have a contact in their pediatric department. Dr. Martinez, she's the best." Of course he did. Of course he had contacts everywhere. "You didn't have to do that." "Ava?" He stood and looked at her directly. "Stop arguing and let me help, please." There was something in his voice, not pity, not condescension, just determination, and maybe a little bit of his own fear. "Okay," she said quietly. Ethan scooped Noah up like he weighed nothing, blanket and all. "Come on, let's get you to the car." The drive to the hospital was a blur. Ethan's SUV cut through traffic with practiced efficiency while Ava sat in the back with Noah, monitoring his breathing, checking his pulse, trying not to completely fall apart. "He's going to be fine," Ethan said from the front seat. "You don't know that. High fevers are scary, but kids are resilient, and we're getting him help. He's so small." "I know." At the hospital, things moved faster than Ava had ever experienced. Dr. Martinez was waiting, just like Ethan said. Within minutes, Noah was in a room, hooked up to monitors, getting fluids through an IV. The doctor examined him thoroughly while asking Ava questions about symptoms and timeline. Ava answered as best she could, but her mind kept stuttering, stuck on the image of her baby in a hospital bed looking so pale and fragile. "It looks like a bad case of strep throat," Dr. Martinez said finally. "The fever's high, but we'll get it down. I'm going to start him on antibiotics and keep him here for observation for a few hours." "He's going to be okay?" Ava's voice came out smaller than she meant it to. "He's going to be fine. But you did the right thing bringing him in when you did." After the doctor left, Ava sank into the chair beside Noah's bed and put her face in her hands. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind exhaustion and residual fear and the kind of shaky relief that made her want to cry. She felt a hand on her shoulder. "Ethan."
You okay? I'm fine. I'm not the one with strep throat.
That's not what I asked. Ava looked up at him. He'd pulled a chair over and was sitting close enough that she could see the concern in his eyes. I was so scared, she admitted. I don't know what I thought. But when his fever kept climbing, I just kept imagining worst-case scenarios. That's what parents do. We catastrophize. Does it get easier? No. You just get better at pretending you're not terrified. He glanced at Noah, who'd finally fallen into a real sleep now that the IV fluids and medication were working. Sophia had pneumonia when she was 4, spent 3 days in the hospital. I didn't sleep the entire time, just sat beside her bed and bargained with the universe. Did the universe listen? She got better, so maybe. They sat in silence for a while, watching Noah breathe. The monitors beeped steadily. The hospital sounds filtered in from the hallway, pages over the intercom, nurses talking, the squeak of wheels on linoleum. Thank you, Ava said finally, for coming, for all of this. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You dropped everything and drove across the city in the middle of the night for a kid who isn't even yours. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. He's important to you. That makes him important to me. The words settled between them, heavy with implication. Ethan, I'm not trying to pressure you into anything. I'm just stating a fact. But that's the thing. You keep doing these grand gestures and saying these things that make me feel like... She stopped, not sure how to finish. Like what? Like maybe I've been wrong about us, about whether this could work. And that's terrifying, because I've spent 6 years building walls to keep myself safe, and you're systematically dismantling them, and I don't know what happens when there's nothing left to hide behind. Ethan reached over and took her hand. His palm was warm, solid. What happens is, you let someone help carry the weight for a while. That's all. I don't know how to do that. Then learn. I'll wait. A nurse came in to check Noah's vitals, interrupting the moment. By the time she left, Ava had pulled her hand back and Ethan had shifted in his chair, putting a careful distance between them. Around midnight, Dr. Martinez came back. Fever's down to 100.2. He's responding well to the antibiotics. I'm comfortable sending him home with a prescription and instructions for follow-up care. Really? Tonight? His vitals are stable, and honestly, kids recover better at home. Just watch him closely for the next 24 hours. Ethan drove them home. Noah was half asleep in the back seat, the fever finally broken but leaving him wrung out and weak. Ava sat beside him, one hand resting on his knee. When they reached her apartment building, Ethan helped carry Noah upstairs despite Ava's protests that she could manage. I know you can manage, he said, settling Noah into bed. But you don't have to. After Noah was tucked in, Ava walked Ethan to the door. It was past 1 in the morning now. He had to be exhausted, but he didn't show it. Get some sleep, he said, and call me if anything changes. I mean it. I will. He started to leave, then turned back. Ava? Yeah? I need you to know something. I'm not trying to rescue you. I'm not trying to fix your life or solve your problems. I'm just trying to be here, because that's what you do for people you... He stopped. For people who matter. He left before she could respond. Ava closed the door and leaned against it, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. She checked on Noah one more time, sleeping peacefully, temperature normal, then collapsed on the couch. She should sleep. She had to work tomorrow. But her mind was racing. Ethan had almost said it, had caught himself at the last second, but she'd heard it anyway, the unspoken words hanging in the air between them. For people you love. She pulled out her phone and stared at his contact information. Then, before she could talk herself out of it, she sent a text. For people who matter to you too. The response came immediately. Yeah, something like that. Ava smiled despite herself, despite the exhaustion and the fear and the absolute mess of her life. Then she set her phone aside and finally let herself sleep. The next morning, Noah woke up looking almost normal. The fever was gone completely, though he was still tired and his throat hurt. Can I have popsicles for breakfast? He asked hopefully. You can have toast and popsicles for breakfast. Deal. Ava called work and explained the situation. Tom was less than thrilled, but agreed to let her take the day off. Unpaid, of course, but what choice did she have?
They spent the day on the couch watching movies and eating soup. Around noon, the doorbell rang. Ava opened it to find Mrs. Chen holding a large container. "Mr. Calloway asked me to bring this. It's chicken congee. Good for sick children." "You didn't have to come all the way here. It's no trouble. And this is from Sophia." She handed over a construction paper card covered in crayon drawings of dinosaurs. She was very worried about Noah. After Mrs. Chen left, Ava read the card to Noah. His face lit up. "Can I call Sophia and tell her I'm okay?" "After you eat some congee?" The congee was delicious and clearly made from scratch. Ava wondered how early Mrs. Chen had gotten up to make it, how early Ethan had asked her to. That afternoon, while Noah napped, Ava tried to paint, but her hands wouldn't cooperate. She kept thinking about last night, about Ethan's face when he'd looked at Noah in the hospital, about the way he'd held her hand like it was the most natural thing in the world, about the walls she'd built that weren't quite as solid as they used to be. She gave up on painting and instead found herself looking through old photos on her phone. There weren't many from before Noah was born. She'd left most of that life behind when she'd walked away from Ethan. But she had a few, tucked away in a folder she rarely opened. Ethan at 19 laughing at something she'd said. Ethan at the beach, squinting into the sun. The two of them at the pier, taken by a stranger who'd offered when he saw them watching the sunset. They looked so young, so sure that love was enough. They'd been idiots. But looking at those photos now, Ava wondered if maybe they'd also been right. Not about love being enough on its own, but about the foundation being real. Something worth building on if they'd had the tools and time and maturity they'd both been lacking at 18. Her phone rang. "Ethan. How's he doing?" "Much better. The congee helped. Thank you for that." "Mrs. Chen's recipe. She insists it can cure anything." She might be right. Ava paused. Sophia's card was sweet. Noah loved it. She's been worried. Kept asking if he was going to die. Oh no, poor thing. I told her fevers are scary, but usually not dangerous. Not sure she believed me. She wants to FaceTime him when he's feeling up to it. He'd like that. They talked for a few more minutes about nothing important. Doctor's instructions, medication schedules, whether Noah should stay home from school tomorrow, normal parent things. It felt easy, comfortable. When they hung up, Ava realized she was smiling. That night, after Noah fell asleep at a normal hour for the first time in 2 days, Ava stood in front of her easel and finally felt ready to work. She painted Ethan and Noah in the hospital room. Not literally, she didn't do literal portraits, but the feeling of it. The contrast between sterile white walls and the warmth of someone showing up when you needed them. The way fear could transform into relief and maybe something more. By 2 in the morning, she had the rough composition down. By 4, she'd started adding color. By the time the sun came up, she had something that made her chest ache to look at. It was good. Maybe the best thing she'd done yet. She titled it Showing Up and added it to the gallery pile. 8 down, 4 to go. Noah went back to school on Friday. Ava went back to work. Life returned to its normal chaos of shifts and homework and trying to find hours in the day that didn't exist. But something had shifted. Saturday's playdate happened at Ava's apartment for the first time. It was Sophia's idea, relayed through Ethan with careful diplomatic phrasing. She wants to see where Noah lives, if that's okay with you. Ava looked around her small, shabby apartment with its peeling paint and secondhand furniture and felt the old shame rising. It's not much compared to Ava, stop. She's 6. She doesn't care about square footage. He was right. When Sophia arrived, she was delighted by everything. The fact that Noah's room had glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, the way you could see the park from the living room window, the small collection of painted rocks Ava and Noah had made last summer. "This is so cool," Sophia declared. "It's like a cozy nest." "A nest?" Noah looked skeptical. "Yeah, small and safe and perfect." From the mouths of children. Ethan stayed for a while, helping Ava make sandwiches while the kids played. It was domestic in a way that should have felt weird but didn't. "Your place suits you," he said, cutting crusts off bread. "You mean it's small and barely holding together?" "I mean it's real. Everything in my house is designed and decorated and perfect. This feels lived in." That's a nice way of saying messy. It's a nice way of saying it feels like a home. Ava glanced at him. He was focused on the sandwiches, but there was something in his voice that sounded almost wistful. Do you not feel at home in your house? Sometimes I do. When Sophia's there and we're doing normal stuff, but other times it feels like a museum, beautiful and cold and full of things that don't mean anything. You could change that. Maybe I need help figuring out how. The words hung between them. Ava wasn't sure if they were still talking about interior decorating.
Later, after the kids had eaten and run off to play again, Ethan wandered over to her painting corner. Ava's heart jumped. "You've been busy," he said, taking in the canvases in various stages of completion. "Gallery show is in 3 months. I'm behind." "These are incredible." He stopped in front of the newest one, the hospital painting. "What's this one called?" "Showing Up." He stared at it for a long moment. "It's us. Last week." "Not literally." "No, but emotionally. I can feel it." He turned to look at her. "You're really talented, Ava. I hope you know that." "I'm trying to believe it." "Try harder." She laughed despite herself. "Okay, bossy." "I'm serious. You have a gift. Don't let fear convince you otherwise." Before Ava could respond, there was a crash from Noah's room, followed by Sophia yelling, "I'm okay." Both parents rushed toward the sound. The moment broken, but not forgotten. The weeks leading up to Christmas blurred together. Work, painting, time with Noah, increasingly frequent dinners with Ethan and Sophia. Ava's apartment became a revolving door of play dates and impromptu meals, and Ethan showing up with coffee when she texted him at midnight about being stuck on a painting. "You don't have to keep rescuing me," she said one night when he appeared with lattes and moral support. "This isn't rescue. This is collaboration." "I'm not sure sitting on my couch while I paint counts as collaboration." "I'm providing emotional support and quality beverages. That's collaboration." The thing was, he was right. Having him there helped. Not because he did anything specific, but because his presence made the lonely hours of creating feel less isolating. She finished painting number 9 on a Tuesday night, number 10 on Thursday. By the following Monday, she had 11 pieces she felt confident about. 1 left to go. "What's the last one going to be?" Ethan asked. They were at his house for dinner, the kids occupied with a movie in the other room. "I don't know yet. I keep starting things and abandoning them." "Why?" "Because none of them feel right. The exhibition is supposed to tell a complete story, and I don't know how to end it." "What's the story you're telling?" Ava considered. "Survival, growth, learning to be vulnerable again after you've convinced yourself you can't be. Sounds like you know exactly what the last painting should be." "What?" "Whatever comes next. Not the past, not the present, the future." "I don't know what my future looks like." Ethan met her eyes across the table. "Don't you?" The question felt loaded with meaning. Ava broke eye contact first, looking down at her wine glass. "It's complicated." "It doesn't have to be." "Yes, it does. You have this whole world that I'm not part of. Business dinners and charity galas and people who speak in 6-figure donations. I work at a diner. And eventually you're going to realize that we don't fit." "Ava." Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. "I've spent the last 3 months watching you work 2 jobs, raise an incredible kid, and create art that makes me feel things I forgot I could feel. You fit into my world better than most people who were born into it. That's not how the world works. Then maybe the world is wrong." She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that love and determination could overcome practical obstacles like class differences and social expectations. But she'd learned the hard way that wanting something didn't make it true. "I should get Noah home," she said, pulling her hand back. "It's a school night." Ethan didn't argue, but the look on his face told her he knew she was running again. On the drive home, Noah was quiet in the back seat. "You okay, baby?" Ava asked. "Are you and Mr. Calloway going to get married?" The question came out of nowhere and everywhere at once. "What? No, why would you? Where did that come from?" "Sophia says her dad likes you, and you like him. That's what people do when they like each other." "It's more complicated than that." "That's what you always say." Out of the mouths of children. When they got home, Ava helped Noah get ready for bed, then sat on the edge of his mattress like she did every night. "Noah, if Mr. Calloway and I did like each other, like Sophia says, "Would that be okay with you?" Noah thought about it with the seriousness only a 6-year-old could muster. Would he be my dad? I I don't know. Maybe not like that, but he'd be important to us. Would we move to his house with the treehouse? Probably not. Would he move here? I doubt it. Then how would it work? I honestly don't know. Noah nodded like this made perfect sense. You should figure it out, because I like Mr. Calloway. And I really like Sophia, and you smile more when they're around. After he fell asleep, Ava sat in her painting corner and stared at the blank canvas that would become piece number 12. Noah was right. She smiled more, laughed more, felt more alive than she had in years. But she was also terrified. She picked up her brush and started to paint without thinking, letting her hands work while her mind wandered. She painted for hours, barely aware of what she was creating, just letting it flow. When she finally stepped back around 3 in the morning, she saw what she'd made. 2 figures on a pier, a man and a woman. Not touching, but turned toward each other. The space between them was filled with light, golden and warm and full of possibility. Behind them, the ocean stretched into darkness. Ahead, the sky was beginning to show hints of dawn. It was them. Her and Ethan. Standing at the edge of something new, not sure whether to step forward or back. She titled it The Edge of Maybe and knew it was the last piece. The gallery exhibition was complete. The gallery called 2 weeks before the exhibition to schedule a walkthrough. Ava stood in the middle of the Riverside Art Gallery's main space, watching workers hang white panels and adjust track lighting, and tried to remember how to breathe. We'll display the pieces chronologically, Jennifer, the curator, was saying. Starting with the pier painting that first caught our attention, then moving through your journey, the final piece, The Edge of Maybe, will have the wall to itself. It's powerful enough to stand alone. Ava nodded, not trusting herself to speak. This was real. This was actually happening. We're expecting good turnout, Jennifer continued. We've gotten interest from several collectors already, and the local press wants to do a feature. How do you feel about interviews? Terrified, Jennifer laughed. That's normal, but you'll be great. Your work speaks for itself. After the walkthrough, Ava sat in her car in the parking lot and called Ethan before she could second-guess it. Hey, he answered. How'd it go? It's real. They're hanging my paintings on actual walls where actual people will see them. That's amazing. That's terrifying. Can it be both? Ava leaned her head back against the seat. They want me to do interviews, talk about my artistic journey and inspiration. How am I supposed to explain that half these paintings are about you without sounding like a complete mess? There was a pause on the other end. They're about me? Some of them. Maybe most of them. I don't know. It's all kind of tangled up, my past, my present, everything I'm afraid of, and everything I'm trying to figure out. Ava, I should go. I have a shift in an hour. Wait, can I see them? Before the opening? She hesitated. The paintings felt like standing naked in public. Letting Ethan see all of them together, see the full story she'd been telling, felt like handing him a map to every vulnerable corner of her heart. I don't know if that's a good idea. Please, I want to understand what you've been creating. That's what I'm afraid of. But she agreed anyway, because saying no to Ethan was getting harder every day. They scheduled it for Sunday afternoon when the gallery would be closed for installation. Ava met him there with her stomach in knots. Jennifer had left them a key and instructions for the alarm. Ava disarmed it with shaking hands and led Ethan into the main gallery space. Her paintings were already hung, though not in final positions. They lined the walls in various arrangements, some lit dramatically by the track lighting, others still in shadow. Ethan stopped just inside the doorway. Ava, he breathed. She watched him move from painting to painting, taking his time with each one. He started with the pier, their pier, then moved to the ones about survival and struggle. The hospital painting stopped him for a long moment. So did one she'd called Breakfast Table, which captured the feeling of early morning exhaustion and the particular loneliness of making coffee for one in a silent apartment. When he reached the edge of maybe, he stood in front of it for so long that Ava started to get nervous. That's us, he said finally. Not a question. Yeah. You painted us at the pier, but not the past. This is now, or maybe tomorrow, I'm not sure. She moved to stand beside him. I kept trying to paint something else for the final piece, something about Noah or my future career or independence. But this is what came out. We're not touching in the painting. No. But we're moving toward each other. Or away. It's ambiguous. Ethan turned to look at her. Which way do you want it to be? I don't know. That's the whole point. I'm standing at this edge and I don't know if stepping forward is brave or stupid. What does your gut say? My gut says I'm in love with you and terrified of what that means. The words came out before she could stop them. Ava felt her face flush hot. Forget I said that. I didn't mean... Don't! Ethan caught her hand. Don't take it back. Ethan, I'm in love with you too. I have been since I saw you on that highway. Maybe before that. Maybe I never stopped. Ava's chest felt too tight. This is a terrible idea. Probably. We have kids and completely different lives and 12 years of history that didn't work out the first time. I know. So why does it feel like the only thing that makes sense? Ethan pulled her closer, because sometimes the illogical thing is the right thing. He kissed her then, slow and careful, like they had all the time in the world. Ava kissed him back and felt something inside her finally settle, like a puzzle piece clicking into place, like coming home. When they broke apart, she was crying. Hey, Ethan said softly, wiping her tears with his thumb. What's wrong? Nothing. Everything. I've been so scared for so long, of needing someone, of letting someone matter, and now you're here and I can't pretend anymore that I'm fine alone. You were fine alone. You're incredible alone. But maybe you don't have to be alone anymore. What if we screw this up? What if we hurt the kids? Then we'll deal with it, together. But I don't think we will. He rested his forehead against hers. I think we're both too stubborn to let this fail. Ava laughed through her tears. That's your grand romantic declaration? We're too stubborn? You want romance? Fine. You're the most remarkable woman I've ever met. You've survived things that would have destroyed other people. You've raised an amazing kid while working yourself to exhaustion. You've created art that makes me feel like I'm seeing the world clearly for the first time. And you're beautiful and maddening and impossible to forget. I tried for 12 years. It didn't work. Oh. Oh? That's all I get? I'm not good with words. That's why I paint. Then paint me something that says you'll give this a real chance. Ava looked around at the gallery walls covered in paintings she'd created over months of fear and hope and confusion. I already did, 12 times. Ethan smiled and kissed her again. The exhibition opening was on a Friday in early March. Ava spent the entire day convinced she was going to throw up. You need to eat something, Maria said during the lunch shift at the diner. I can't, my stomach's in knots. It's going to be great. You're going to sell everything and become a famous artist and forget about us little people. I'm not going to forget you, and I'm definitely not going to become famous. You don't know that, but Ava was pretty sure she did. The art world didn't work like that. One small gallery show didn't launch careers. This was probably her one shot, and after tonight, life would go back to normal. Except normal had changed. Normal now included Ethan, who'd spent the last 2 weeks acting like they were already a couple, even though they hadn't defined anything. Normal included Sophia and Noah constantly scheming to have sleepovers. Normal included Ava waking up to good morning texts and falling asleep on the phone after midnight conversations about nothing important. Normal had gotten complicated in the best possible way. She left work early to go home and change. The gallery had suggested artistic but professional, which translated to the one decent black dress she owned and the heels that only sort of hurt. Noah was staying with Mrs. Rodriguez for the evening. Ava had tried to explain what an art opening was, but he'd been more interested in the fact that Mrs. Rodriguez let him eat cookies for dinner. Be good, Ava told him at drop-off. I'm always good. That's debatable. Mrs. Rodriguez smiled. He'll be fine. You go be a fancy artist. Ethan picked her up at 6:30. He was wearing a dark suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, and he looked unfairly handsome. You clean up nice, Ava said, sliding into the passenger seat. So do you. That dress is... He stopped, seeming to lose his train of thought. Is what? Going to make it very hard for me to focus on anything else tonight. Ava felt herself blush. Shut up. I'm serious. You look beautiful. You have to say that. We're dating. Are we?
I don't remember you ever agreeing to that officially. Fine. We're dating. Happy? Very. The gallery was already crowded when they arrived. Ava recognized Jennifer near the entrance, talking to a group of well-dressed people. A photographer was setting up in the corner. There was wine and cheese and soft jazz playing. Ava's stomach lurched. I can't do this. Yes, you can. Ethan took her hand. Your work is incredible. These people are going to love it. What if they don't? Then they have terrible taste and will leave early. Jennifer spotted them and waved them over. Ava, you made it. Come meet some people. The next hour was a blur of introductions and small talk. Ava smiled and shook hands and tried to sound articulate when people asked about her process. A local newspaper reporter asked for an interview. A couple from the arts district wanted to know if she took commissions. Through it all, Ethan stayed close. Not hovering, but present. A steady hand on her lower back. A reassuring smile when she caught his eye. You're doing great, he murmured during a brief lull. I feel like I'm going to pass out. Don't do that. At least wait until after they bring out the good wine. Around 8 o'clock, Jennifer clinked a glass to get everyone's attention. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's my pleasure to introduce our featured artist, Ava Bennett. Ava came to us with a powerful collection of work that explores themes of survival, resilience, and the courage it takes to be vulnerable. Her paintings are deeply personal while remaining universally resonant. Ava, would you like to say a few words? Every eye in the room turned to her. Ava's mouth went dry. She hadn't prepared anything, hadn't thought she'd need to make a speech. But here she was, surrounded by people waiting for her to say something profound about art and inspiration. I'm not good at speeches, she started. I'm better at painting than talking. But I guess the whole point of this exhibition is that sometimes you have to do the scary thing even when you're not sure how it'll turn out. She glanced at Ethan, who was watching her with encouragement in his eyes. These paintings are about a lot of things. Being a single mom, working hard just to survive. The kind of exhaustion that becomes your normal. But they're also about what happens when you let yourself hope for something better. When you stop building walls and start opening doors. Her voice caught slightly. Someone once told me that fear was keeping me from living fully. I spent years being angry about that because I thought fear was what kept me safe. But fear doesn't keep you safe. It just keeps you small. So these paintings are me trying to be bigger than my fear, trying to believe that maybe I deserve good things, that maybe we all do. There was a moment of silence, then applause. Ava felt her face heat up. And now I'm going to go find that wine Jennifer mentioned, she added, getting a laugh from the crowd. As people dispersed back to viewing and mingling, a woman approached her, mid-50s, elegant, with sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Miss Bennett, I'm Carol Harrison. I own a gallery in San Francisco. Oh, hi. I'd like to talk to you about representing your work. Your style is exactly what we've been looking for. Emotionally honest without being sentimental. Raw, but refined. Ava blinked. You want to represent me? If you're interested, here's my card. Think about it and give me a call next week. After Carol walked away, Ava stood holding the business card like it might disappear. Did that just happen? She asked Ethan. That just happened. A San Francisco gallery wants to represent me. Because you're talented and people can see that. I think I need to sit down. They found a quiet corner where Ava could catch her breath. The exhibition was a success, that much was clear. People were lingering in front of paintings, having serious discussions about composition and emotion. Several had red dots beside them already, indicating sales. Which one sold? Ava asked Jennifer when she passed by. Let's see, the breakfast table won 2 of the abstract pieces, and someone put a hold on the pier painting. Ava's heart sank slightly. The pier painting was the one that started everything. Who put the hold on it? Jennifer smiled. That would be me. Gallery owner's privilege. It's going in my personal collection. By 9 o'clock, Ava had sold 7 paintings. 7. She'd made more money in 3 hours than she usually made in 2 months at the diner. She felt dizzy. I need air, she told Ethan. They stepped outside into the cool March evening. The gallery was on a quiet street lined with trees that were just starting to bud. Ava leaned against the brick wall and tried to process everything that had happened. You okay? Ethan asked. I don't know. This doesn't feel real. It's real. A gallery in San Francisco wants to represent me. I sold 7 paintings. People are taking me seriously. Of course they are. Why wouldn't they? Because I'm... She stopped. I was going to say just a waitress, but that's not true anymore, is it? You were never just anything. But no, it's not true. You're an artist. You always were. Now other people know it too. Ava looked at him. This man who'd shown up in a storm and somehow become essential to her life. Thank you. For what? For seeing me before anyone else did. For believing I had something worth sharing.
You don't need to thank me for that. I just recognized what was already there. She kissed him then, right there on the sidewalk outside the gallery, not caring who might see. When they went back inside, the crowd had thinned slightly. Ava found herself standing in front of the edge of maybe, staring at the 2 figures who might be moving toward or away from each other. I know which way they're going, she said quietly. Ethan came to stand beside her. Yeah.
Forward. They're definitely moving forward. Good, because I was hoping you'd say that. The exhibition ran for 3 weeks. Ava sold 11 of the 12 paintings. The only one that didn't sell was The Edge of Maybe, which she'd marked as not for sale at the last minute. That one stays with me, she told Jennifer, at least for now. The success of the show changed things practically. Carol Harrison's gallery in San Francisco offered her a contract. She'd have another exhibition there in 6 months, which meant she needed to create a whole new collection. The money from the sales meant she could cut back her hours at the diner. Not quit completely, she wasn't ready for that leap, but enough to have actual time to paint. But the biggest change was internal. Ava looked in the mirror and saw an artist instead of a struggling single mom. Both were true, but the emphasis had shifted. You seem different, Maria commented one day at work. Different how? Lighter, like you're not carrying the world on your shoulders anymore. Maybe she wasn't. Or maybe she'd just learned to let someone help carry it. Ethan had started spending more time at her apartment, not officially living there, but present enough that Noah had stopped being surprised when he showed up for breakfast. Sophia came over almost every weekend. The kids had essentially become siblings, bickering and playing and looking out for each other with the fierce loyalty of children who'd chosen their family. We should probably talk about what this is, Ava said one night after the kids were asleep. They were on her couch, Ethan's arm around her shoulders, some mindless TV show playing in the background. What do you want it to be? He asked. That's not an answer. Neither is your question. Ava sighed. I don't know, something real, something permanent, but I'm also scared of moving too fast and screwing everything up. We've known each other for 12 years. We've been dating for 3 months. That's not fast. We've only been dating for 3 months.
Semantics. He shifted to look at her directly. I love you. You love me. Our kids love each other. What else do we need to figure out? Logistics? Like where we live? What we tell people? How we blend our lives without losing ourselves? We figure it out as we go. That's very zen for a billionaire CEO. I'm full of surprises. Ava laughed despite herself. Okay, so we're doing this, for real. For real. No running away when it gets hard? No running away. Even when I'm impossible and stubborn? Especially then, someone has to keep you honest. She kissed him to shut him up, and the conversation dissolved into other, better things. A week later, Ethan asked her to come to his office. He had something to show her, he said, something important. Ava arrived at Callaway Tech during her lunch break, still in her diner uniform. The receptionist recognized her now and waved her through without the judgmental once-over from that first visit. Ethan met her at the elevator. This couldn't wait until tonight? Ava asked. No, come on. He led her to his office, a massive space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. But Ava barely noticed the view because hanging on the wall behind his desk was her painting, the pier painting, the one that had started everything. You bought it, she said, from Jennifer. She was reluctant to part with it, but I convinced her. How much did you pay? Doesn't matter. Ethan, it belongs here, where I can see it every day. He moved to stand beside her, both of them looking at the painting. Do you remember that night? The real one, 12 years ago? Of course I remember. I asked you to trust me. to believe we could make it work despite everything. And I said no. I walked away. You did, and for 12 years I convinced myself you were right, that we were too different, too young, too everything. He turned to face her. But I was wrong. We weren't too anything. We just weren't ready yet. And now? Now I'm ready. The question is, are you? Ava looked at the painting, at the sunset colors, and the two young people who'd loved each other before life got complicated. Then she looked at Ethan, who was older now, scarred by loss and responsibility, but still looking at her like she was worth fighting for. I'm terrified, she admitted. I know. But yeah, I'm ready. Ethan pulled a small box from his desk drawer, not a ring box, something flat and rectangular. What's that? Open it. Inside was a key. My house has too many empty rooms, Ethan said, and your apartment's lease is up in 2 months, so I'm offering you a room. For painting. Studio space with good light and enough room for all your supplies. No strings attached. You and Noah can stay in your apartment if you want, but you'll have a place to work. A place that's yours. Ava stared at the key. It was a practical offer. Generous, but not overwhelming. A step forward that didn't require her to give up her independence completely. Just a studio, she asked? For now, unless you want it to be more. I might, eventually, but I need time. Time I've got. She took the key. It was warm from being in his pocket. Thank you, she said. For this. For everything. For not giving up on me even when I kept pushing you away. You're worth the patience. That weekend, Ethan helped her move her art supplies to the new studio. It was on the second floor of his house, with huge windows facing east for morning light. Someone had already installed professional easels and storage for canvases. When did you do all this? Ava asked. Last week. I wanted it ready. Noah and Sophia ran in and out, already claiming corners for their own projects. Sophia wanted to learn to paint. Noah wanted to build sculptures from recycled materials. The studio quickly became their space, too. This is chaos, Ava said, watching the kids argue about whose turn it was to use the good scissors. Good chaos, though, Ethan said. Is there such a thing? With kids? That's the only kind there is. They ordered pizza for dinner and ate it in the studio, surrounded by art supplies and children's laughter. It felt easy, natural, like something they'd been doing for years instead of weeks. After dinner, Mrs. Chen took the kids to watch a movie, leaving Ava and Ethan alone in the studio. I could get used to this, Ava said, looking around. That's the idea. You know this doesn't fix everything, right? I still have to work. Still have to figure out how to be a professional artist. Still have to... Ava. What? Stop looking for reasons this won't work and just enjoy the moment. She tried. She really did. But old habits died hard. I'm going to mess this up, she said quietly. At some point, I'm going to panic and push you away or sabotage something or... Ethan crossed the room and took her face in his hands. Then I'll be here when you're done panicking, and we'll figure it out, together. That's how this works. You make it sound simple. Because it is. We love each other. Everything else is just details. Ava wanted to argue, to point out all the ways it was more complicated than that. But looking at him now, seeing the certainty in his eyes, she couldn't find the words. So instead she kissed him and decided just for tonight to believe him. Over the next month, Ava fell into a new rhythm. Morning shifts at the diner 3 days a week, afternoons in the studio, evenings with Noah, often at Ethan's house. It still felt strange calling it Ethan's house instead of home, but she wasn't quite ready for that shift yet. The San Francisco Gallery wanted 15 pieces for her next show. Ava had sketched ideas for 10 and completed 3. The deadline was tight, but manageable if she stayed focused. You're working too hard, Ethan said one evening, finding her in the studio at nearly midnight. I have a deadline. You also need sleep. Sleep is for people without artistic vision. Sleep is for people who want to survive past 35. Ava set down her brush and looked at him. What are you doing here? I thought you went home hours ago. I did. Then I got worried when you didn't answer your phone. Sorry, I was in the zone. Ethan walked around to look at what she was working on. It was a piece about family. Not the traditional kind, but the one you built from broken pieces and second chances. 2 kids playing while 2 adults watched from a distance, close but not touching, learning to trust the foundation they were building.
"Is this us?" he asked. "Everything I paint lately is us." "I don't mind." "You should. It's kind of creepy how obsessed I am." "It's not creepy. It's love."
The word still made her chest tight. Love. Such a small word for such a complicated feeling. "Come on," Ethan said, holding out his hand. "I'm taking you home." "I should finish tomorrow. Tonight you need rest." She let him lead her out of the studio and down to his car. They drove through the quiet streets with the windows down, cool night air washing away the paint fumes and exhaustion. At her apartment, Ethan walked her to the door like they were teenagers on a first date.
"Thank you," Ava said, "for caring whether I sleep. Someone has to. I'm not used to that, having someone who worries." "Get used to it. I'm not going anywhere." She kissed him goodnight and watched him drive away before going inside. Noah was asleep at Mrs. Rodriguez's. He'd been having sleepovers there more often since Ava's schedule got unpredictable. The apartment felt empty without him. Too quiet. Too full of her own thoughts. Ava made chamomile tea she wouldn't drink and sat on the couch in the dark. This was her life now. Studio space in a mansion, a boyfriend who looked at her like she hung the moon, career opportunities she'd stopped dreaming about years ago. So why did she still feel like she was waiting for something to go wrong? Her phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. "Made it home. Sleep well. Love you." 3 words that used to terrify her. Now they just made her smile. She texted back, "Love you too," and meant it. The thing about waiting for disaster was that eventually you stopped noticing the good things happening right in front of you. Ava realized this on a Tuesday morning in late April when she walked into the studio and found Noah and Sophia painting together, both of them covered in more paint than the canvas. "Mom, look!" Noah held up something that might have been a dinosaur or a tree. "Sophia's teaching me about color mixing." "It's supposed to be purple, but it turned brown," Sophia explained seriously. "That's what happens when you use too much red." Ava looked at these 2 kids who'd somehow become inseparable, at the easy way they existed together, and felt something crack open in her chest. Not fear this time. Something else. Something that felt dangerously close to contentment. "That's beautiful, baby," she told Noah. "Very avant-garde." "What's avant-garde?" "It means weird, but in a cool way." Ethan appeared in the doorway behind her. "Did my daughter just turn your son into an abstract expressionist?" "Looks like it." "Should we be worried?" "Probably." They stood there watching the kids paint, and Ava felt Ethan's hand find hers. It was such a small gesture, but it meant everything, the casual intimacy of it, the assumption that her hand belonged in his. "I have a meeting in an hour," Ethan said quietly. "But I wanted to ask you something first." "Okay. My company's annual gala is next month. It's a big deal. Investors, board members, press. Usually I go alone or bring a business associate, but this year I'd like you to come with me, as my date." Ava's stomach dropped. "A gala? With billionaires and society people? With me? The rest is just noise." "Ethan, I've never been to anything like that. I wouldn't know what to wear or how to act, or you'd be yourself, that's all I'm asking." "Myself in a room full of people who'll wonder what you're doing with a waitress. Former waitress, current artist, and I don't care what anyone wonders, I care about having you there with me." Ava pulled her hand away and crossed her arms. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of, being paraded around as Ethan's charity project. The poor girl he'd rescued and cleaned up. "I need to think about it," she said. "Ava, I said I need to think about it." She could see the hurt flash across his face, but he nodded. "Okay, let me know." After he left for his meeting, Ava threw herself into painting with an intensity that bordered on aggression. She was working on a piece about masks, the ones people wore in public versus who they really were. It was supposed to be metaphorical, but right now it felt very literal. "You're painting angry," Mrs. Chen observed, bringing her tea around lunchtime. "I'm painting focused. Same brushstrokes, different energy." The older woman set down the cup. "Want to talk about it?" "Not really." Well, I'll just say this. Mr. Calloway hasn't brought anyone to that gala in 3 years, not since his wife passed. The fact that he's asking you means something. Or it means he hasn't figured out yet that I don't fit into his world.
Maybe you don't fit because you keep standing outside looking in. Mrs. Chen headed for the door, then paused. Or maybe you fit perfectly, and that's what scares you. Ava was still thinking about that conversation when she picked Noah up from school that afternoon. Can Sophia come over tonight? He asked immediately. She was just at our house yesterday. So? So maybe she needs a break from you. She doesn't. We're making plans. What kind of plans? Noah got that look kids get when they're about to reveal something they think is brilliant. We want you and Mr. Calloway to get married so we can be real brother and sister. Ava nearly walked into a parking meter. Noah, it's more complicated than that. Why? Because grown-up relationships are complicated. You always say that, but Mr. Calloway loves you and you love him and we all like each other. What's complicated? Out of the mouths of children. That night, after Noah was asleep, Ava pulled out her phone and stared at Ethan's contact. She should call him, apologize for earlier, explain that it wasn't about him, it was about her own insecurities. But before she could dial, her phone rang. Not Ethan, a number she didn't recognize. Hello? Ava Bennett? This is Richard Calloway. Her blood went cold. Richard Calloway. Ethan's father. The man who'd made it clear 12 years ago that she wasn't good enough for his son. Mr. Calloway, how did you get this number? That's not important. What's important is that we need to talk about your relationship with my son. I don't think that's any of your business. Everything involving Ethan is my business. I built that company. I made him who he is. And he's been running it successfully without you for years now. There was a pause. When Richard spoke again, his voice was harder. I know what you are. A struggling single mother looking for a meal ticket. You think I don't remember you? The beach town girl who almost derailed his future once before? I'm not that girl anymore. No. Now you're a slightly more successful version of the same thing. An artist. How quaint. Let me guess. Ethan bought your work? Introduced you to gallery owners? Funded your little hobby? My art is not a hobby, and I got that gallery show on my own merit. Did you? Or did you get it because Ethan made a phone call? Because that's what he does. He fixes things, saves people, and right now you're his project. The words hit harder because they echoed her own fears. Why are you calling me? Ava asked. To make you an offer. $500,000. Take it and walk away. Ethan will move on. He always does. But if you stay, you'll only end up hurting him and embarrassing yourself. You're offering me money to leave your son. I'm offering you an opportunity to make a smart decision. You have a kid to think about. That money could change his life. My son's life is fine, and I'm not for sale. Everyone's for sale. It's just a question of price. Ava hung up. Her hands were shaking. She felt sick and furious and scared all at once. Part of her wanted to call Ethan immediately and tell him what his father had done. But another part, the part that still felt like that 18-year-old girl who wasn't good enough, wondered if Richard was right. Was she Ethan's project? Had he been pulling strings behind the scenes, making her success easier because he felt sorry for her? She looked around her apartment at the paintings in progress, at the life she'd built through actual work and sacrifice. Then she picked up her phone and called the one person who'd never sugarcoat the truth. It's almost 10, Maria answered. This better be good. Ethan's father offered me $500,000 to leave him. Holy shit. Yeah. What did you say? I told him to fuck off. Not in those words, but basically. Good. So why are you calling me instead of Ethan? Because I'm freaking out. What if he's right? What if I am just a project? Maria sighed. Ava, I've watched you these last few months. You're happier than I've ever seen you. Your art is selling. Your kid is thriving. You smile at your phone like a teenager. Does that sound like someone being used as a project? But what if? No what ifs. Here's what I know. That man shows up at the diner sometimes just to bring you coffee during your break. He learned how to make Noah's favorite dinosaur-shaped pancakes. He brags about your art to anyone who will listen. That's not a project. That's love. His father thinks I'm not good enough for him. His father can fuck all the way off. What does Ethan think? I don't know. We haven't really talked about the future. Maybe it's time you did. After they hung up, Ava sat in the dark and tried to untangle her thoughts. She'd been so focused on protecting herself that she hadn't considered what she might be protecting herself from. Not heartbreak, Not really. She'd survive heartbreak. She'd survived worse. What she was really afraid of was happiness, because happiness felt fragile, temporary, like something that could be snatched away at any moment. Her phone buzzed. Ethan, can't sleep. Keep thinking about earlier. I'm sorry if I pushed too hard about the gala. You don't have to go. Ava stared at the message. He was apologizing for asking her to be publicly acknowledged as the woman he loved. Meanwhile, his father was offering her money to disappear. She called him. Hey, he answered, sounding surprised. I thought you'd be asleep. Your father called me tonight. Silence. Then, what did he say? He offered me $500,000 to leave you. More silence. Ava could practically hear Ethan's jaw clenching. I'm going to kill him, he said finally. I turned him down. I would hope so, but still, he had no right. He said I was your project, that you've been pulling strings to make my career happen because you feel sorry for me. Ava, that's not... Is it true? Even a little bit? Did you call in favors to get me that gallery show? No, I sent them your work. That's it. Everything after that was you and your talent. But the art supplies, the studio, the connections to collectors. I gave you tools. You did the work. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. His voice was firm now. Ava, listen to me. I have not pulled strings for your career. I haven't made calls or paid people off or done anything except believe in you and give you space to create. Your success is yours, not mine. Ava felt something loosen in her chest. Okay. Okay? I believe you. Good. Because it's the truth. He paused. Are you all right? Because I can come over, or you can come here, or we can just stay on the phone. I'm okay, just processing. My father's an asshole. Yeah, I got that impression. I'm going to talk to him tomorrow. Make it very clear that he's to never contact you again. Ethan, you don't have to... Yes, I do. He crossed a line. Another pause. Ava, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Do you actually want this? Us? Or are you just going along with it because it's easier than saying no? The question cut deeper than Richard's insults. I want this, Ava said quietly. I want you. That's what scares me, because wanting something this much means it can hurt me if I lose it. You're not going to lose it. You're not going to lose me. You can't promise that. I can promise I'm not going anywhere by choice, and I can promise that whatever challenges come up, we'll face them together. Ava closed her eyes. I'll go to the gala with you. You don't have to. I know, but I want to. I want to stand next to you in front of all those people and not be afraid of what they think. I love you. I love you too, even when you're infuriatingly optimistic about everything. She could hear the smile in his voice. Get some sleep. We'll deal with my father tomorrow. But sleep didn't come easily. Ava lay in bed thinking about fear and faith and the difference between protecting yourself and imprisoning yourself. She'd been so focused on avoiding pain that she'd almost missed out on the best thing that had happened to her in years. The next morning, she called Tom at the diner. I need to talk to you about my schedule. If you're cutting more hours, I can't guarantee your shifts. I'm quitting, 2 weeks' notice, effective today. Silence. Then, are you serious? Yeah, it's time. I have enough commissions lined up that I can support myself with just painting. Barely, but enough. Wow. Okay. I'm happy for you. Really. You were too good for this place anyway. After she hung up, Ava sat very still and let the reality sink in. She'd just quit her safety net, the steady paycheck that had kept her afloat for 6 years. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. She texted Ethan. Just quit the diner. Might be having a small panic attack. His response was immediate. Breathe. You've got this. Proud of you. The 2 weeks passed in a blur. Ava worked her final shifts, said goodbye to Maria with promises to stay in touch, and tried not to think about the gap between her last paycheck and when the next commission payment would arrive. You're doing the right thing, Maria said on Ava's last day. Chasing your dream. Not many people have the guts. Or the stupidity. Same thing sometimes. The gala was the following Saturday. Ethan took Ava shopping for a dress, overriding her protests about cost. This is non-negotiable, he said. You're going to be photographed. Might as well feel good about what you're wearing. They ended up at a boutique where the saleswoman looked at Ava like she was a particularly interesting puzzle to solve. She needs something elegant, but not fussy, Ethan told the woman. Something that makes a statement. 2 hours later, Ava stood in front of a three-way mirror wearing a deep emerald dress that somehow made her look like a completely different person. Sophisticated, confident, like someone who belonged at a billionaire's gala. That's the one, Ethan said. It's too expensive. It's perfect. I look like I'm playing dress up. You look beautiful. There's a difference. The saleswoman rang up the dress along with shoes and a small clutch purse. Ava tried not to look at the total. On the drive home, she was quiet. Having second thoughts? Ethan asked. More like 47th thoughts. About the gala or about us? Both. Neither. I don't know. She looked out the window at the city passing by. What if I say the wrong thing to someone important? What if I embarrass you? You won't. You can't know that. I know you. That's enough. The night of the gala, Mrs. Chen came over to help Ava get ready. She did Ava's hair in an elegant updo and showed her how to apply makeup that looked natural but polished. You're good at this, Ava said, watching in the mirror. I used to work at a salon before I became a housekeeper. Different life. Why'd you change careers? My husband got sick. Needed someone with flexible hours who could handle medical appointments. Sometimes life changes your plans. She stepped back to admire her work. But sometimes the new plan works out better than the old one. When Ethan arrived to pick her up, his expression made all the anxiety worth it. Wow, he said. Too much? Not enough words. He handed her a box. I got you something. Inside was a delicate necklace with a small pendant shaped like a paintbrush. Ethan, this is a reminder. No matter what happens tonight, you're an artist first. Everything else is just costume. He fastened it around her neck, and Ava felt something settle inside her. She could do this. She could be herself in a room full of strangers because she knew who she was now. The gala was at a historic hotel downtown. The ballroom was all crystal chandeliers and marble floors, and people who looked like they'd stepped out of magazines. Ava felt her confidence waver the moment they walked in. Breathe, Ethan whispered. I've got you. He introduced her to people whose names she immediately forgot. Business partners, board members, society wives who looked at her dress and shoes with calculating eyes. Ava smiled and made small talk and tried to remember everything Maria had told her about being gracious under pressure. And this is Ava Bennett, Ethan said for the dozenth time. She's an artist. Just had a successful show at Riverside Gallery. How lovely, said a woman in diamonds that probably cost more than Ava's car. What sort of art? Contemporary emotional landscapes. Abstract but grounded in personal narrative. The woman blinked. How interesting. After she walked away, Ethan grinned. You sounded very professional just then. I've been practicing. It showed. They were heading toward the bar when someone called Ethan's name. Ava turned to see Richard Calloway approaching, looking exactly like what he was, old money and cold authority. Ethan, surprised to see you brought a date this year. His eyes flicked to Ava with barely concealed disdain. Ms. Bennett. Mr. Calloway. I trust you've been well. No unexpected windfalls recently? Ethan stepped between them. We're not doing this. Not here. I'm simply making conversation with your guest. You're being an asshole. There's a difference. Ethan's voice was low but hard. I told you to stay away from her. And I told you that you're making a mistake. But you never did listen to good advice. Good advice would be you walking away before I say something we'll both regret. Richard's eyes narrowed. You're willing to throw away everything we built for a woman you barely know? I'm willing to choose my own life instead of living the one you designed. There's a difference. Father and son stared at each other for a long moment. Then Richard turned and walked away without another word. Ava let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. That was intense. He's been trying to control my life for 32 years. It stops now. Ethan, no. He doesn't get to make you feel less than. He doesn't get to decide who I love or how I live. He took her hand. Dance with me. I don't really know how to... Oh,
Neither do I. We'll figure it out.
Out on the dance floor, surrounded by couples who'd probably taken ballroom lessons, Ava and Ethan swayed awkwardly to a waltz they didn't know the steps to. "We're terrible at this," Ava said. "The worst. Everyone's watching. Let them." She rested her head against his chest and stopped caring about the steps or the stairs or anything except the feeling of being held by someone who chose her over everything else. When the song ended, a photographer approached asking for a picture. Ava started to pull away, but Ethan kept his arm around her waist. "Together," he said firmly. The photo ran in the society pages the next morning. Ethan Calloway and his mysterious artist girlfriend. The caption speculated about who she was and whether this was serious. Maria texted her the article. "You look hot. Ignore the comments section." Ava ignored the comments section for exactly 3 minutes before curiosity won. Most were benign speculation. A few were cruel. One said she looked like a gold digger. Another questioned why Ethan would date someone so ordinary. She was about to put her phone down when Ethan called. "Don't read the comments. Too late. People are assholes. Ignore them." "I'm trying. Try harder. Or better yet, come over. The kids want to have a pool day and Sophia's been asking for you all morning. It's 9 a.m. "So? Pool time doesn't have a schedule." Ava smiled despite herself. "Give me an hour." At Ethan's house, she found Noah and Sophia already in swimsuits, armed with water guns and plotting something that probably violated several safety regulations. "Mom!" Noah ran over, dripping wet. "Mr. Calloway said we can have a water balloon fight after swimming. Can you be on my team?" "Against who?" "Him and Sophia." "That seems unfair. They're bigger. That's why we need strategy." Ethan appeared in swim trunks, looking unfairly attractive. "Ready to get destroyed? Bring it." They spent the afternoon acting like children. Water balloons flew. Alliances formed and broke. At one point, Mrs. Chen came out to referee when accusations of cheating got too loud. Later, while the kids played Marco Polo in the pool, Ava and Ethan sat on the edge with their feet in the water. "Thank you for last night," Ava said. "For standing up to your father, for not being embarrassed by me." "Why would I be embarrassed?" "Because I'm not like the women in that room. I don't have the right background or education or—" "You have something better. You're real, you're honest, you've survived actual hardship and come out stronger. That's worth more than any pedigree." Ava leaned her head on his shoulder. "You know this isn't going to be easy, right? Your family will never accept me. People will always question whether I'm good enough. Then I'll spend the rest of my life proving them wrong. That's a long time. I'm counting on it." The next few weeks settled into something that felt almost like routine. Ava worked in the studio most days, creating pieces for the San Francisco show. Noah started first grade with Sophia in the same class, which meant constant playdates and homework sessions that involved more giggling than actual work. Ethan's father made one more attempt at interference, showing up at Ava's apartment unannounced. "I underestimated you," Richard said when she opened the door. "The offer still stands. More money this time." "No amount of money will make me leave him." "Then you're a fool." "Maybe. But I'm a fool who loves your son. And unlike you, I actually want him to be happy. I want him to be successful. Those aren't the same thing." Richard left without another word. Ava never told Ethan about the visit. Some battles you had to fight alone. October came, bringing with it cooler weather and the San Francisco exhibition. Ava spent a week installing her work in Carol Harrison's gallery, staying in a small hotel, and calling Noah every night before bed. "I miss you," he said on the third night. "I miss you too, baby. When are you coming home?" "2 more days, and then I'm all yours." "Sophia says her dad misses you too." Ava smiled. "Does he?" "Yeah, he's been grumpy." The exhibition opening was bigger than Riverside had been. More press, more collectors, more pressure. Ava wore the emerald dress again and tried to channel the confidence she'd felt at the gala. Carol introduced her to critics and buyers and other artists. Ava's work hung beside established names, and somehow it held its own. By the end of the night, she'd sold 8 pieces and fielded interest from 3 museums. "You've arrived," Carol told her. "This is just the beginning." Ethan and the kids flew up for the final day of the show. Noah ran through the gallery, pointing at each painting like he was personally responsible for their creation. "That's my mom's work," he told a bewildered collector. "She's really good." Sophia was more subdued but equally proud. "This one's my favorite," she said, stopping in front of a piece about family. "It looks like us." "It is us," Ava admitted. After the gallery closed, they walked along the waterfront. The kids ran ahead, chasing seagulls and shrieking with laughter. "You did it," Ethan said. "You're a real artist now." "I was always a real artist. Now other people just know it." "Fair point." They walked in comfortable silence for a while. The sun was setting over the bay, painting everything gold and orange. "I have something to ask you," Ethan said, "but I want you to really think about it before you answer." Ava's heart started pounding. "Okay. Move in with me. You and Noah. Not just the studio, but the whole house. Make it our home instead of just mine." "Ethan, I know it's fast. I know you value your independence, but we're there half the time anyway, and the kids are basically siblings already. It makes sense, logistically and emotionally." Ava looked at her son playing with Sophia, at these two kids who'd found each other the same way their parents had. Then she looked at Ethan, this man who'd crashed back into her life and refused to let her keep hiding. "What about my apartment?" "Keep it, sublet it, turn it into a second studio, whatever you want." "And if this doesn't work, then we'll figure it out. But I don't think it won't work. I think we're better together than apart." "The kids will be thrilled. Noah's already asked me 3 times if he can have the room next to Sophia's." Ava laughed. "Of course he has. Is that a yes?" She took a deep breath. This was it, the moment where she chose forward instead of back, where she chose to believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved something good. "It's a yes." Ethan kissed her right there on the waterfront with the sunset behind them and their kids cheering in the background. They moved in over Thanksgiving weekend. It took 2 trips to get all of Ava's things, which wasn't much. Furniture stayed, memories came with. Noah's room became a kid's paradise with Sophia's help. Ava's clothes hung next to Ethan's in the master closet like they'd always belonged there. "This is weird," Ava said, looking around the bedroom that was now theirs. "Good weird or bad weird?" "Good weird. Scary weird. This is really happening weird." "It's really happening." Christmas was chaos. Both sets of grandparents came. Ethan's mother was lovely, his father was absent. Noah's paternal grandparents existed somewhere on the East Coast and never called. The kids got too many presents. Mrs. Chen made enough food for an army. Ava painted everyone's portraits as gifts. On Christmas night, after the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, Ethan and Ava sat in the living room by the tree. "I have something for you," he said, handing her a small box. Ava's heart jumped. This was it. The ring. The proposal. She wasn't ready. Or maybe she was. She couldn't tell anymore. But when she opened the box, it wasn't a ring. It was a key. "Another key?" she asked, confused. "To the house. Your name's on the deed now. It's not just my house anymore. It's ours." Ava stared at the key. It was such a practical gift, such an Ethan gift, giving her ownership instead of just access. "I love you," she said. "I love you too. And before you ask, yes, there will be a ring eventually. But I wanted this first. I wanted you to know you belong here not because you're my girlfriend, but because this is your home." "When did you become such a romantic?" "I've always been romantic. You just weren't paying attention." She kissed him, tasting cinnamon and promises. The new year brought new routines. Ava set up a proper schedule for painting. Noah and Sophia started soccer together. Ethan cut back his hours at work to spend more time at home. They had family dinners, movie nights, homework battles, and bedtime negotiations. It wasn't perfect. Noah went through a phase of testing boundaries. Sophia had nightmares about losing another parent. Ava and Ethan fought about stupid things like whose turn it was to do dishes and whether the kids had too much screen time. But it was theirs. This messy, imperfect life they were building together. In March, on the anniversary of the first exhibition, Ethan took Ava back to the pier. The same pier where they'd fallen in love at 18, where they'd said goodbye at 20, where Ava had painted them standing at the edge of maybe. "I've been thinking about that painting," Ethan said. They were standing at the railing watching the sunset. "The one with us at the pier." "What about it?" "You said you didn't know which way we were moving, toward or away." "I remember." "I know now. We were moving toward. We've always been moving toward. It just took us 12 years to get here." Ava leaned into him. You know what I realized? What? Love isn't about perfect timing or right circumstances. It's about choosing someone every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Is that your artistic philosophy or your life philosophy? Both. Ethan pulled a small box from his pocket. This time it was a ring. I know we said we'd wait, but I'm tired of waiting. I've waited 12 years already. I don't want to wait anymore. Ethan, marry me, Ava. Make this official. Make us a family for real. She looked at him, this man who'd seen her at her worst and loved her anyway, who'd given her space to grow and support when she needed it, who'd chosen her over his father's approval and society's expectations. The kids are going to lose their minds, she said. Is that a yes? That's a yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and Ava felt something click into place. Not the fairy tale ending she'd stopped believing in. Something better, something real. They got married in September on the same pier. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Noah and Sophia were joint ring bearers, arguing about who got to hold the pillow. Mrs. Chen cried. Maria gave a toast about stubbornness and second chances. Even Ethan's mother attended, though his father's absence spoke volumes. During their vows, Ava looked at Ethan and said, You found me on the worst night of my life and turned it into the beginning of something beautiful. You saw past my fear and my walls and my determination to handle everything alone. You taught me that asking for help isn't weakness and that love doesn't make you vulnerable. It makes you brave. I love you. I choose you. Today and every day after. Ethan's vows were simpler. I loved you at 18. I loved you at 30. I'll love you at 80. Some things don't change. You're my constant. After the ceremony, during the reception, Ava found herself standing at the edge of the pier alone for a moment, looking out at the ocean, thinking about the girl who'd stood here 12 years ago and walked away from love because she thought she was protecting both of them. Hey, Ethan joined her. What are you thinking about? How sometimes the wrong choice leads you to the right place eventually. You think walking away was the wrong choice? Back then? I think it was the only choice I could make. I wasn't ready. You weren't ready. We needed those 12 years to become the people who could make this work. So no regrets? Oh, I have regrets, but not about us. Never about us. Noah and Sophia ran up, still in their fancy wedding clothes, but now covered in cake frosting. Can we go swimming? Noah asked. In your suit? Ava said. We'll change first. It's almost dark. Please? Ava looked at Ethan, who shrugged. They're kids. Let them be kids. 20 minutes later, both children were splashing in the shallow water while Ava and Ethan sat on the sand watching them. Married, a family, something Ava had thought she'd never have. You know what the best part is? Ethan said. What? This is just the beginning. We get to do this for the rest of our lives. The rest of our lives is a long time. I'm counting on it. Ava leaned her head on his shoulder and watched her son play with his new sister, both of them shrieking with joy in the fading light. She thought about all the years she'd spent alone, convinced that needing someone made you weak, all the walls she'd built, all the fear she'd carried, and she thought about how love, real love, messy and imperfect and brave, had slowly dismantled every defense she'd ever constructed. Some endings were really beginnings. Some wrong turns led you exactly where you needed to be. And sometimes the person you let go came back into your life at exactly the right moment. Not because of fate or destiny or the universe conspiring, but because two broken people decided to choose each other, again and again, until broken didn't feel broken anymore. It just felt like home.